Unmute, please.
And unmute. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible.
It's almost impossible to step with this when you've got in the background. We should have left that on mute for a while. All right. Welcome everyone to our special meeting to talk about the budget. Paige, the floor is yours. I guess you have the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We could move all four chairs right around you if you wanted.
Thank you for coming tonight. We're going to go over the general fund revenues and the department operating budgets, and Matthew's actually going to open it up for us.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Tonight, as Paige said, tonight is really just the general fund operations budget. So first of all, we are going to review the current year general fund projections, FY23 general fund revenue budget, big ticket items, department budgets. We will have a study session next week to do the review of the CIP. And our tentative and final budget adoption dates are as follows. The tentative will be on May 18th with the final plan for June 15th. Yes, ma'am.
We need to have you at the table for the party.
Oh, bless you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. That'll work. Tonight's budget presentation will be a little different from the past. Obviously, for one thing, we're doing it partially via Zoom. But also, tonight's budget will be done by our department heads. So we feel that each department head should be able to own, sell, defend their budgets. So you will see that tonight. Some of our staff members are here in person, some are here via Zoom. Honestly, just because we couldn't all fit in one room. So that we will do the change with everyone as we go through that. At this time, I'll turn it over to Paige.
Thanks, Matthew. I wanted to do just a quick review of where I'm projecting that will end this fiscal year. So the city sales tax projection is going to be 32% higher than budget estimates at almost $2.3 million. Our state shared sales tax projection will be, I'm projecting 11% higher, about $82,000. So all revenues combined, 23% higher than budget estimates, totaling $2.34 million. And then on the expenditure side, I'm projecting 9% below budget, just over $930,000. That gives us a net result of revenue, operating revenues over operating expenses of $3.4 million. So I'm estimating our ending fund balance in June will be roughly $19 million. Next slide, please.
Question?
Yeah.
All the leading indicators of the spending. We have this 2.28 million sales tax. Do you have an idea how much of that is from new business? How much is new business? Yeah, we're probably going to keep some portion of that if spending goes back to the old normal.
I could analyze it and see what is specifically from new business. I typically look at our top 10, and I follow those very closely.
So what are you referring to as new business? Because we have new business in the sense that we have a Denny's restaurant, and that's not going to probably change in the future. We've got a Taco Bell. We've got a variety of new businesses. Mm-hmm. So are you looking at revenues somewhat that are different than just from a brand new business, something new in the city?
This 2.28 million is 32% higher than budget estimates. I'm wondering if we have a feeling, if we didn't have the new businesses, how high would that number? Thought is that with the new businesses, we're going to continue on at some higher planes, but we're liable to drop back down to, we've probably got an extraordinary push right now going on. We may drop back down to a normal spending pattern at some point. I'm kind of wondering if we're looking at trying to figure out what that might be.
Now, I could understand if you were saying that some businesses that we have in the city are experiencing higher sales for some reason in our economy, and maybe those businesses will drop back. But I don't think that the revenues that are attributable to new businesses, which are essentially the ones at Dysart and Camelback, those new businesses, they're not gonna go away. And we've got additional new businesses coming on,
Right.
such as the warehouse down at El Mirage in Camelback. It's gonna, if anything, it's gonna raise revenues, so. We can, I think it's good to have staff analyze, but I think you need to figure out what it is that you really want them to analyze. And if you wanna know what revenue is in this budget that wasn't in last year's budget because the businesses didn't exist yet, we can certainly do that. That's something that she can figure out very easily. But I'm not sure that we can
Well, how
figure
are you
out whether Fry's is selling more because of some reason.
Yeah, how are you gonna do the budget estimates for next year?
The revenue estimates,
Yeah.
we're projecting, sales tax to come in at 9.4, and we were proposing to budget 9, so 400,000 under, projections.
400,000 under this year's projected revenues.
Okay.
The top 10 make up, a significant portion of our sales tax, and so I do keep a close watch on those top 10. Without disclosing any specific, taxpayer information.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick recap on our revenue by sources. We rely heavily on sales tax and state share that makes up 89% of our total operating revenue. Next slide, please. Just a line graph to give everybody a visual of our revenues versus expenses since fiscal year 18. Obviously, the revenue is trending up while your expenses are going up slightly, but certainly not by as revenue, which is good. Next slide, please. So we started this year with a fund balance of $15.5 million, and we have to keep a minimum fund balance of just under 1.6 and a stabilization fund of 3.6. So that leaves an unassigned or spendable balance of $13.8 million and a grand total of just over $19 million.
Is the 3.1 that you have in there for capital projects, is that everything that we've approved to spend?
Yes.
Many of which are not going to get spent in this fiscal year.
It's what we're anticipating we'll spend. We have approved a lot more in the budget. It includes the 1.6 for Litchfield Square Utilities and then the other capital projects that we're anticipating will be done by the end of June.
So this is, you think we'll actually do those projects?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Slide, please. I sent this presentation out Saturday morning, and since then I got updated state shared revenue numbers, so that's what these numbers off to the right are, which it was a very pleasant surprise. Our estimated state shared sales tax went from $820 to $980. The income tax went from $987 to $1.3 million, and then the vehicle license tax $300 to $324. So what we're recommending to budget for revenues this year, we already touched on the city sales tax at $9 million, franchise fees at $165. You can see our other smaller revenues, but that will total $13,137,268. The city sales tax is a pretty big budget increase. It's a 26% increase over current budget year of $1.88 million, but it is $400,000 lower than our projected actual. We budgeted extremely conservatively this year at 7.1. I remember we had this discussion last year, and I was still very new and wasn't that comfortable with. I didn't have very good feel for our revenues at that time.
Right.
And that's one reason why I recommended such a conservative estimate. But after analyzing it, and I'm feeling comfortable recommending 9 million for city sales tax.
Well, I think it actually, from what the question that the Vice Mayor originally had, I think it would be interesting to know if we looked at this time last year versus today, businesses the new businesses which have opened, and have some idea, you know, like an order of general magnitude of how much they added just because they're here.
Okay.
They weren't here with the time that we were doing this budget last year.
Okay, I will certainly do that. And
Councilor Sosi.
It was weird to me last year, it's weird to me again. Would we actually expect our revenues to go down next year?
not unless we have a downturn in the economy.
I guess I'm just thinking, I don't expect a downturn in the next 12 months, but even if we get a downturn, we still have more new businesses. I mean, we have businesses that just opened this year, and we'll have other new businesses that are opening next year. It would seem to me to be highly unlikely that we would face a downturn in sales tax revenues. But
Yeah, they keep trending up. It's still a pretty conservative number. We're still going to have
I would
a
say
different.
very conservative number.
Yeah. This is the plan that we've been working on for a long, long time, coming to fruition finally.
Yeah.
Getting us in a situation financially where things are much better than they ever were. I mean, when you first came on mayor, we had a budget that was about working $45 million.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very low.
And we made it work.
Mhm.
Just Tom's 2 cents. I think you're being incredibly conservative. I mean, I would personally, I'd be comfortable with 10 million in revenue. I'd have a hard time imagining we don't go up at least $600,000. That would seem to be conservative to me.
Yeah, the year-over-year trends are certainly showing that, the new businesses. Hoping for.
I'd like to see us continue down the path of being conservative, because I still think our political situation is dicey, and we don't know what's going to happen.
And it is, I've had conversations with a variety of legislators this year, and one of the biggest problems they're having is they have too big of surplus, and they have they feel this incredible need to spend every dime of it. And it's just, I think it's better if we're conservative on what we've got coming in, because there will be, you know, if we budget an extra $400,000 or an extra $1 million even, I guarantee you there'll be pressure on us to spend.
I mean, the 9 million number is almost 2 million worth of budget for last year. And I don't have a problem with that number. I think Tom's right. I think it's conservative. My crystal ball is not real clear. So hopefully we'll have a pleasant surprise at year end.
Yeah.
Some of the other numbers are not, you know, like $320,000 for special events revenue is a healthy increase. It's almost 20% increase over what it looks like it's going to be for this year. So
We also have the Zona Wired franchise fees. That was a $75,000 increase.
Do you have a guesstimate as to what you expect the sales taxes off the city center to be next year?
On construction sales tax? I don't.
you have a crystal ball, what we're going to do?
We are
That's something we're going to spend, and we're going to get a portion of it back, and then that's going to go away.
You're talking about in the city center like
Part of our
next year?
Yeah, part of our.
Yeah.
How much of our?
We've got 145,000 square foot building basically.
Oh, we've got all the money that we're spending.
Well, we got that.
Yeah, that's what we bonded. What?
15 million.
Something less than 20. Yeah.
15.
So we're gonna try and spend most of that, so we're gonna get the sales tax back off
Well,
of
we should spend
that.
all of it the next fiscal year.
Yeah, and that sales tax is gonna come back at us, so,
Yeah.
but that's not gonna be a recurring thing.
No.
Hopefully, we'll get some
And
businesses
we'll-
that'll make up for it most.
I don't have it in this presentation, but we are going to go over it, next week. The
Well,
construction
15
sales
million,
tax.
what's 4% of 15 million?
No, 4% of 60% of it.
Yeah.
60%, so 9 million is times 4.
Yeah, 65, I think it is, isn't it?
So,
Can I just interject real quickly? This is really helpful the way it's presented here, rather than having to scroll down on our computers, so thank you.
Oh, it is a lot easier on the paper for sure.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on the revenues before we jump to expenses? Okay. Like Matthew mentioned earlier, each department is going to present their own budget, so I won't get into the details, of each department. But our total operating expenditures, we're recommending $10,492,896, which is an increase of $255,000 from this current fiscal year, or 2.5%. And our operating surplus, which means our operating revenues over operating expenses, will be just over $2.6 million, which again, I believe is a conservative number. If you look at this year's surplus at 3.4, we're being conservative, budgeting $900,000 less than this year's projected. And then back over to Matthew.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just on the
Sure.
general fund expenses, and I think you're touching on it down here in the next slide, but I'm just curious, how much are we building in for cost of living increases for employees?
We're planning for a.
Next page.
Well, it doesn't say it on the next
No,
page.
no, the next page is the one you're looking at.
Yeah,
It's the first
but
item.
it's also part of all this,
We're
5%.
Yes, sir. We're planning for a 5% COLA and a 2% merit, for a
Okay.
total of 7.
And how much did we do last year?
Last year we did 3 total.
I think you should do more,
We can certainly look at that, if that's what council would like to do, sir.
because well, it's Tom's opinion, but, I mean, within our business, we did 3% in November and 5% in May, so we're doing more than 8
Okay.
for the calendar 12 months, and inflation's 8.5.
Right.
I think you gotta keep up with inflation.
Sure.
Dan?
They're losing.
Who was that? All righty. We'll go on then.
Mayor and council, to summarize so far, as Paige had said, so for FY '22, we had 10.3. For FY '23, before Paige had the newer numbers, we were looking at 12.6, now we're looking at 13.1. That's a difference of 26% increase on revenues. On total expenses, 10.2 budget for this year. We're requesting 10.492 for next year. That's a difference of $255,000 or 2.5%.
Sorry, comment on that.
Please, sir.
It makes it look good that we're only increasing expenses 2.5%, but it's bogus, because we didn't spend 10 point, whatever we budgeted, we only spent 9.3. So you're actually increasing your expenses about 12% or 13%, so I think you should be honest when you present it.
If they spend that much.
I mean, I'm looking at the fiscal year estimated.
I'm just saying, if, every year, what ends up happening is, in terms of the way that the city has approached this in the past, is they're very conservative on revenues, and so they end up budgeting less than what they probably will get,
Right,
and they budget more on expenses than what we're gonna really spend.
right.
So it ends up, they're both bogus numbers, if that's
Right.
what I'm looking at. I mean,
Yes.
it's not,
Yes, but
so,
I think we should, I don't think it's interesting at all to compare this coming year's budget to last year's budget, because last year's budget is old information. The only thing that's really meaningful is what we actually did last year. So, I mean, we spent 9.3, and I'm not arguing that we shouldn't spend 10.5.
I understand.
I'm just saying that we should present it honestly, which is, if we do spend 10.5, it would be a 13% increase, it's not a 2.5%.
That's correct.
and we have actually talked about this in the past, that it would be better if we budgeted what we really think we're gonna need to spend, and then put in contingency contingency line items so that we have money in the budget that could be spent if we have to do it, but it would require moving from that contingency line item to the area that's over budget.
Correct.
One challenging thing with government budgets is once we set the tentative, and that's the maximum expenditure for the whole year, so we do budget for some of the what-ifs in a lot of these, and that's why we end up with that swing.
I know,
And it is confusing.
Can you show the what-ifs as separate line items within wherever they occur?
Yeah, I mean, if the internal budget, the budget that we use to manage the city should be a real budget, you know, like what we really expect to expend. And maybe we have to present a different budget to the state, you know, but, I mean, when we all look at it.
We used to have a managed two budget.
Yeah, when we all look at it, we should be looking at what we
When the
really thought
economy
we were
sucked,
gonna
we had
do.
to manage the
should-
budget.
Yeah.
If we're always starting with bogus numbers, then, I mean, we aren't really doing anything, you know? Just bogus,
Fair.
Yeah.
we're just pretending.
And we actually did do that. It was called a managed to budget, and it was the numbers that we would use internally
We really
that we
wanted to
managed.
accomplish,
Yeah.
So you had,
Never when money was really, really tight,
Right.
and we in the grass.
We had an expenditure budget that we adopted that you know, was just like this expenditure budget. But then we had a managed to budget that was in each. It went through the same detail, and we would look at that monthly. So we'd look to see what the expenses were within each category versus the managed to budget.
okay. You had one you basically used to satisfy the tentative budget number as required, and you had an actual, basically.
Well, we had a managed to budget. That's
Right.
what we were.
Yeah.
You'd call it a stretch budget, if you will.
Sure.
If you guys do an exceptionally good job, then you should be able to manage the budget a lot tighter.
Or like for some private businesses, you have the income statement and the budget you show yourself, and then you have the one you show the IRS, and they don't always align because you account for things differently. It's sort of the same
Okay, now that makes sense.
concept. You should have real numbers that you're trying to manage too, which is
And-
my perspective.
To Councilmember Verstosie's point, on this current year, we budgeted 10.2, and we're on track to spend 9.3, which of course is roughly almost $1 million difference. And I would tell you for next year, I don't think we'll actually spend 10.4. It's right along those same lines. Yeah, that's certainly a fair
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. I would, since we're now to the proper slide, I would just reiterate, I do seriously think we should be including in the budget at least 8% for cost of living. And I would leave it up to you to decide, but how's our turnover compare? You know, like if we're having turnover, then maybe we should be thinking about more.
Sure.
If we aren't having turnover problems, then maybe 8% is fine, but it's an incredibly competitive job market. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. And so pay matters.
It certainly does.
So we shouldn't be, especially since we don't have an income statement problem, we shouldn't be chintzing on our employees, I don't think.
And I would tell you, we have had turnover in certain positions, some more than others, of course. We have looked at other valley cities, that most valley cities are between 6 and 8. Some other cities around the state have done what you said for your business personally, where they had a raise last fall, one in the spring break ended up that way. We could certainly do a higher number if council would like to do that. I would recommend though breaking it up, but say for example you wanted to do 8% total. I would look at doing 6 and 2. We have COLA and merit.
No. What I'm suggesting is 8% COLA
Plus merit?
and then 2% merit if that's what you want. Yeah.
Oh.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 8% total.
Oh, okay. All right.
What I'm saying is that
Practice
if you lived on $50,000 last year as your income, then this year you need $54,000 to live the exact same as you did last year. 8%, because everything costs 8% more.
Sure.
So you deserve a $4,000 raise just to keep up.
Okay. But if that's what council would like to do, we can certainly do that, sir.
That's what Tom wants to do. I can't speak for the rest of them.
Okay.
They don't usually listen to me, so.
Sometimes we do.
So I really can't listen, so I really can't speak for them.
I want you to come down to the firm and talk
Stay away from my.
You just need to bill more. That's probably what they tell you, right? Control your own income. Just bill more.
Coming back to these numbers, again, based off these numbers, we're looking at a $255,000 increase or 2.5%. In the same year that we're looking to do a 7% increase almost across the board, When I say almost, what I mean by that is, for example, we're not doing that for seasonal positions. Also, you have to be here or you should be here so long before you're eligible for a raise. But I'm pretty proud of that number personally. In the same year that we can do a 7% across the board, I'll be looking at a 2.5% increase. I think is good numbers, is a good place to be. Also, we had $371,000 in increases. Obviously, those two numbers together, if you had the 455 and 371, would be in the mid-8s. However, we also had $571,000 in budget reductions this year, and that's how we're able to have a 2.5% increase, not an 8 or a 10. And we have more of those on the spots going forward. Any questions on the spot so far? Thank you. Next slide, please. Getting into some of the breakdown personnel. Again, we're looking at a 5% COLA.
Thanks.
5% COLA is $177,000. We're looking to add 2 new public works positions. Councilmember Associate mentioned turnover, and we have a lot of turnover in public works. We just do. That's nothing against Richard. It's just the job, the field in this market. We're constantly hiring for public works, and we need 2 more people than what we already have.
So just to echo my point about going to 8%.
Yes, sir.
That would be about an extra
$100,000
is all it would cost.
Yes, sir. It wouldn't be that much.
So it's not that much money.
Agreed.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, we don't have an easy way for you to raise your hand, but now that I know you want to comment, we'll recognize you, Councilman Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I somewhat agree with Tom. Cost of living is tough out there on people, and this is the time to invest in our staff and reward our staff. And we pride ourselves on being a jewel out here in the desert and someplace special. We need to make it someplace special for the people that work for us as well. So I think this is a time with us having the surpluses we have to maybe evaluate some salaries at some positions and take a look and see what we could do to hire better, build a culture where people want to stay and they don't want to go, and have and maybe pay a little bit more. I think in the long run, it'll cut the turnover and potentially get us better projects.
I don't have a problem bumping the 5% to 8%.
I don't have a problem with that either. We have enough funds coming in to afford to do it.
Do you need direction from us, or is it?
We can certainly bring you back some numbers for next time, but just to clarify, are we saying 8% COLA and 2% merit together? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
I'm good with
discussing?
that.
Yeah, and the 5% goes to 8 and 2% stays.
Okay. That's what council would like to do. We can certainly run you some numbers and bring you back the number next time so you know what it would look like cost-wise. I think the employees would certainly appreciate that. It is a very hard market right now. It's hard to get anybody for positions. We've hired several department head jobs this year. It's hard to get anybody. And there's so much trade-off of employees, especially between the valley cities. There just is. So,
As Tom mentioned, it's going to be about $100,000, slightly more.
Yeah.
But from 5 to 8%.
And that's great, and staff will certainly appreciate that. That's very generous. Thank you. Moving back to the numbers, we have a $110,000 special projects coordinator for Litchfield Square. That's, of course, until the project is completed. That's in the engineering department. So now, of course, we have a full-time city engineer, and we also have our special projects coordinator for Litchfield Square. That's a cost of $110,000.
And you have Woody?
Woody is the special projects coordinator, sir.
Okay, that's who that is. All right.
$71,000 for 2% merit. That does include benefits. $53,000 in salary adjustments. There are certain jobs that we've changed their jobs, added work to their positions, so that's what the $53,000 is. $36,000 in the vacation sellback program. We'll be asking council to approve that tonight. Basically, where employees are allowed to sell back up to 40 hours vacation a year. There are conditions that go along with that. For example, they had to have used 40 hours of vacation in that year, and they can only sell down to 80. So that is subject to council approval. $25,000 in the health insurance increase. We are asking council for the city basically to cover this insurance cost to 3.75%. We would rather see the city pay for that rather than put it on the employees. Their costs are up enough like they are, and it's a small, nice thing to do. Our retirement actually went down, so it's a $6,100 decrease. $52,000 decrease in the building safety restructure through change of employment in that one. Same thing with planning services. We saw a $97,000 reduction in planning services for a total of $455,000 on this slide. Moving forward, $125,000 JLO marketing. Again, that is not the brokerage side, that is only for marketing. We have not paid that out yet, but to come. $50,000 for Hilltop maintenance. We already budgeted 50, so this is bringing it up to a total of $100,000. As you know, we've been discussing a potential agreement with SunHealth for some time, and we need to put a line item in there for when it actually comes together.
I thought we were budgeting $100,000 a year in the past.
We've been budgeting 50, haven't we?
Is it 50 we're
It was
budgeting?
just 50.
Were we spending about 100?
I don't believe so.
I think we're spending about 50. Plus, plus the amounts, we have a fund that people give into, particularly Denny families giving into, so we'd spent money out of that fund. So it's not part of this budget.
Right, okay, so that would kick it back up, okay.
$78,000 on magistrate court. This is not so much that the court has costed that much more money. It's just that this last year, we spent our court contingency fund down to pay for part of court, down to a minimum of $50,000, which we established through ordinance last year. So now, of course, the money has to come out of general fund again, now that we've got the contingency fund down where it needs to be, if that makes sense. We'll cover that more on the court slide later. $46,000 for IT services and software licenses. $45,000 for professional holiday light decorators.
Is that the council
Yeah, I'll make
Donahue line item?
Hallelujah,
Go ahead,
hallelujah to that one.
Council Clare.
I was just gonna make a comment on the holiday decorations. I think we should really turn it up in the downtown area and make it something special, especially as we got the construction going. So I agree with Ann on this.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Donahue.
So Matthew, last year we budgeted $100,000 that we didn't spend, right? So is this gone from 100,000 to 45,000, or where are we there?
No, ma'am. So this is just for the holiday light decorators if we contract it out. You'll see later on in the presentation, this is just to have them actually put the lights up. We're at requesting, I want to say it's roughly, what, 245? 275. 275 to upgrade the electrical infrastructure downtown.
Okay,
Because if we want to do more lights, it requires the infrastructure, and the infrastructure leaves something to be desired. But that would be a one-time cost, of course. You'd have the 275 just electrical infrastructure, then 45 in this.
And there was 5 already, sorry, so it'd be 54.
Okay.
This will just be increase.
Okay.
So it's 50,000 for a professional decorator.
Yeah, so 50,000 total holiday decorations.
And to be honest, I think that's being cheap, sir. I know what the city of Glendale spends on their show. They're actually not doing that anymore, though, in Glendale.
How large a city is the city of Glendale? How many people live there?
A lot bigger than we are, sir.
I'm just curious. Is it 500,000, 250,000? But it's a lot, yeah.
Well, this money, the light decorations and the city gateway signs go to Parks and Rec to look at that, to figure out how to spend it and what they think. They don't have a budget. They don't do anything with any idea they can spend money. So should we tell them this money is here and have them input what goes in down there and somebody spend some time with it?
You mean RPG, sir?
Yeah, Parks, whatever it's called, yeah.
I would definitely recommend we have RPG look at these items, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
I think we should, honestly, if we're concerned about what it's going to look like, I think we need a committee, and we do need professionals, because we don't want it to look shabby. We really want this to look nice. We have got to light up our downtown so that people know, I mean, they know that Litchfield Square is coming, but we just, in my opinion, as you know, we can't make our existing people feel like they're second class. So I just think a lot of people come to the Wigwam during that year. We may only have X amount of people, but we need to make it shine. So we need professionals, I think.
I apologize. To Councilman Donahue's point, part of the upgrades for the downtown infrastructure are so that we can have the same quality of lights in Litchfield Square that we have downtown, so it all connects. That's part of that, but I agree 100%. It has to connect as one, not be two separate areas. $34,000 in street signs, city gateway signs, street light maintenance. $30,000 in fuel increase. We all know fuel has went up. General wall maintenance. This used to be under CIP. We're now going to put this under general for $25,000. $22,000. We have 3 elections this year, and $18,000 in grass seed costs. So grass seed is up. Moving forward.
Does that include increases on fertilizer? Because I understand fertilizer is supposed to go through the ceiling this year.
I just spoke with the rep, and they're on the same track. They think chemicals and fertilizers are on an increase. They can hold 50-gallon barrels, and then, go out very quick.
So we've built that.
Yes.
Okay.
Go up. But just the cost of it.
Talk to our friends at Hickman's and see if because they sell chicken fertilizer.
You know, to that point, we've done that years back in spreading that manure. It was very messy and my opinion was very unhealthy. You know, if you wore a mask, you'd be covered in that dust and you're spreading it, you know, throughout each parked area, so.
Not a good idea then.
Yeah.
It wasn't well received. And it was not well received, but the grass eventually was very green.
Really?
But the fertilizing, schedule that we're on this past year and moving forward, we did about 2 fertilizer treatments, and it should help maintain that grass and that color throughout the season.
There's a local company that takes stuff from Hickman's and converts it, and grows it, treats it.
Artisanal?
No, another one here in Goodyear that does bioflow, yeah, so it blows organic. And they take the chicken stuff from Hickman's and puts bacteria in it, and it sits here and boils and bubbles and turns into something.
Lovely.
Turns into fertilizer that can be sprayed.
Okay, so getting back to our budget.
Sorry.
We certainly looking.
Count on me to bring up the,
We can get the fertilizer when we get to Richard.
Count on you for chicken shit.
there we go.
Okay, Mr. Chair. $15,000 in liability insurance increase, $15,000 in tree maintenance cost increase. This is something council had requested last year, and I hear everything's going up. $12,000 in upgraded agenda management software. This is for the city clerk's office. Our current agenda software leaves something to be desired, and we'd like to change that. $3,000 for the Denny family reunion next October. $7,400 in reductions in various departments. $141,000 in public safety contracts. The big reason for that is, if you remember, for this year, we bought all the equipment for Avondale. That was a one-time cost, so the cost will be down for this year. That's a total of $371,000. One further, $2,600 in the city clerk reductions. Again, we'll be going over these per department. $8,400 in budget and finance reductions. These two we covered already in building and planning. Again, public safety we've covered. And $269,000 debt service payment. The reason why, we had budgeted for a bond payment for $26 million, not 15, because we have to budget for a big enough payment if the council decided to do $26 million. Instead, we did 15, so that's the payment this was. And that reflects a budget reduction of $571,000. Any questions so far? All right, getting into actual department budgets.
Sorry, just real quick.
Please, sir.
Are we supposed to finish by 7, or do we just keep going until we finish?
We just keep going, sir.
Okay.
The first one is my budget, city manager's budget. So for this year, we had $567,000, looking at $586 next year, it's 3.3% higher. And that includes $17,000 we're looking to add a management intern for social media and communications to bring our social media, leave something to be desired, it needs to be updated, it can be done better, that's something we want to do, also a website, et cetera. And again, the $125,000 for JLL contract. One big swap out to notice on mine is that for this last year, we had $180,000 in COVID business assistance. That's done now. But instead, we're going to be doing the $125,000 in marketing through JLL. So except for $60,000, that's basically a wash. But again, that reflects a 3% budget increase on mine. Any questions on city manager's budget? Moving forward into the city council budget. For last year, or the current year, it was $31,000. We were requesting $36,000. That's an overall budget increase of 15%. That includes $1,900 in dues and subscriptions for newspapers, et cetera, and also $3,000 for Denny family reunion, et cetera. And also, we're doing in-person meetings again, so there is some cost for that. Any questions on the city council budget?
Just for next time purposes?
Yes, sir.
Again, just Tom's perspective, it just makes more sense to me if we're comparing to what we actually spent in '21, just because that, you know, we're looking at increases or decreases that aren't real when we're comparing to last year's budget, because it's not what we actually spent.
Okay, so we show actuals, email actuals for,
We don't know yet.
right, so would you like estimates for this year, sir?
I mean, she projected, so I know
Okay.
she might not have projected by every account, but at least totals or something.
We can do projections, I just, okay. All right.
We have
And
a
it's
summary of,
something that's kind of, I'm
sorry, Phil, go ahead.
something that sticks in my mind that makes it a little difficult to build the budget over last year is we're still seeing the effects of COVID. So I know there were lots of opportunities to spend, going to meetings and things like that I didn't take part in. So I hate for us to knock our spending way down.
No, I'm not, I'm only suggesting, I'm not suggesting that it changes how we spend money. I'm only suggesting that it just makes the comparisons meaningful. 'Cause
Probably,
we know, if we know what we actually spent, and maybe we say, well, we're spending a lot more money, but that's because last year we had COVID and we didn't go to all these things, and we are this year. I mean, that totally makes sense, but, you know, we have, on each of these accounts, we don't know what we actually spend. So are we really, maybe we're seeing a doubling in spending, and we just, it's kind of hidden from us. That's
Sure.
sort of my perspective.
yeah, maybe we could just drop in another
Yeah,
column.
just be one more column.
Certainly do that.
Don't take the budget out.
Just
Right.
that estimate ending for 22.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll certainly do that. Let me ask a question on musical chairs. So I'm about to turn it over to Terry. So would you like to, for the sake of everyone on Zoom so they can hear, maybe we'll just have this chair switch out with whoever's doing their department?
Yeah, it's fine, whatever's convenient. The chair at the end of the table doesn't work?
That probably works good, yeah, there's we got a mic down
Yeah.
there.
The back of my head though.
Yeah, why don't you just use the chair at the end of the table?
That works.
People on the TVC.
They can
No.
hear.
Oh, but they can't see it anyway.
Okay, Mayor and Council, as you can see in your packet tonight, my overall budget is 0.88% lower than fiscal year '22. Initial budget request, $300,721. Last year was $303,387. Couple of things to make note, personnel changes. We are replacing the admin 2 with 2 summer temporary positions to help with some duties. We are upgrading the agenda software system for 8,400. We have lots of engineering files, large maps that we are going to scan and purge those paper and Mylar copies. And then the election costs, we have 3 elections this year. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the city attorney's budget. It remains unchanged. It was 150 grand this year, and we recommend 150,000 for next year.
No 8% increase.
No more hours. No more hours, other people.
I can say that the city attorney's budget is well under expenditure. I consider that a professional issue because there's a lot of attorneys that bill out. I look at my clients and I think it's in their best interest for me to do the best amount of work for the lowest amount of time as possible. So I do keep billable hours as a consideration in everything that I do.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. And Paige, I'm back to you for budget.
Thanks, Matthew. The budget and finance, initial request is $374,464. It is a budget decrease of 2.2%. We aren't actually spending less, it's just that a portion of my salary is paid out of the city manager budget to account for my time spent on my assistant city manager duties. But I do have one increase for our financial system. We moved it from an on-premise to a cloud managed services. So that's an increase of $62.36. So a net decrease of $8,430. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I'm just curious, how did you come up with this 5%? How much time do you actually spend on? I just would think it probably was a bit more of your time than 5%, but obviously it's more during the legislative session. But.
Probably actually 70-30. I don't know why we did 5%, honestly.
All right.
we can
We
change
certainly
it.
adjust it.
Well, it would be good, I'd put it in something that's realistic. I mean, if it's 70-30 or 25-75.
Okay. And then I have, the next information technology budget. If you remember, this was the first year we broke it out from finance. I felt that the true IT costs were being buried in the budget and finance, department. We do have an overall budget increase of almost 26%. If you remember, about this time last year, the contractor that we had for 20-plus years put in his notice that he was no longer going to provide services for us. So we did get 3 quotes for managed services. We awarded that to Sentinel. They were the overall lowest out of the 3, but it is a cost increase to what we had paid for in the past of almost $23,000. We have gone through our software and did many updates that needed to be done. We've updated our licenses to make sure we're in compliance across the city. So that is an increase of $23,000. And then a few small decreases that amount to about $18,000. But that's a net increase of $40,125, or under 26%. I'm happy to answer any questions on IT if there are any.
I actually have a question.
Councilman Clare?
Thank you. We're spending $8,400 a year for Cox for their internet services. That's what, $700 a month. You know, the programs that are out there, I know purchasing from my company, I mean, you can get an amazing level of service for $300 a month, more than we would be able to use in our facility. I think that would be something to go out and shop and potentially have a savings there for you and give you more than enough. And that's staying within Cox. That's just staying within the same organization. So you don't have to have any software, any hardware changes or anything. But that's a very high expense for an office our size.
Okay, we will certainly look into that. Thank you.
Anything else on the information technology budget? All right, moving right along.
Next is human resources. Susan, are you on the call with us? I saw earlier. Susan, if you're talking, you're muted. We can't see you. Okay.
There's 3 chats. I wonder if she sent a message.
But
No, that was Ann Donahue.
Councilman Donahue, did you have a question? No? Okay. All right. Well, I will move ahead with HR budget then. For the HR budget, it's 24% higher. For this year, it was $312,000. For next year, we're looking at $389,000. Most of that, as you see, is the employee vacation sellback program. Again, that's subject to council approval. $2,700 in membership stipends. You'll see this tonight also. Stipends, for example, if you work 30 hours a week for the city, you get a $45 Sam's Club membership that we reimburse for. However, that has a taxable benefit, so we're going to change in how we do that this year. So it'll actually cost the city a little more than $45 a person, so the employee will actually get $45, but there's a difference after tax. So membership stipend is $2,700. And also $1,700 in City Hall staff uniforms. We allow $100 per position there. It is more than that for rec and public works, just by the nature of their work. Part of this is that this one is not just a reimbursement. Rather, the city will pay for this outright, and the reason why we want the uniforms back when they wear out, when their employee leaves, et cetera, so they can be destroyed. Continue the next page further of HR. It also includes
Quick question, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
The health insurance, we have an increase in salary, but a decrease in life and health and dental.
Insurance went up everywhere.
That's
Bear with me, sir.
It's right in the center of the page.
Yep.
Life, health, dental.
That could have been a change in the employee's individual plan, sir. depending which plans they select.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
double check it though, but budgeted by employee.
We'll look into it and get back with you, sir. I would consider that an HR issue, but I'll be letting back with you, probably let you know what that change is.
Thank you,
State
sir.
retirement went up, bond,
Thank
so
you,
maybe
sir.
there was something moved around between state retirement and.
We'll check it out and see what that is. Thank you. Other questions on HR department? Thank you. Next, Richard. Please. I will tell you before Richard gets started, he has 4 budget pages, so relative to go through his 4.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. You have the Public Works budget, initial request in your packet there. Our initial budget request is $3,070,276, which is an increase of $348,278. I'd like to point out that Mr. Williams has pointed out a lot of the increases in the beginning of the presentation. And that's where most of our increases are at in the Public Works budget. We do have about 3 or 4 pages of line items. I'd like to take any questions if you have them.
Just a silly one, by boot stipend, and it looks like we had 0 budgeted last year. Is this something we're just starting to do now?
No, we've always provided our Public Works staff with boots. The difference is this year, as Mr. Williams stated, with the Sam's Club membership, this will just be included as a one-time stipend at the beginning of the year. So,
Will just be processed differently.
Yeah.
Rather than
Okay.
an operating expense reimbursed, we'll just pay it through, payroll as a stipend.
The bottom line item is boots, it's
It's-
moved, I think.
Yeah.
From the bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
To food stipend, yeah.
You're right.
So Richard, now having,
So, Richard-
yes, Councilman Clark.
go ahead, Councilman Clare.
Richard, thank you, sir. Richard, if, in looking at what the requirements are and what we're looking to do you feel 2 new techs are enough for what you're looking for? If you were to design your team the way you wanted it, is 2 enough as the additional staff?
I would say as of right now, 2 would be a great addition in the state we're at as the city starts to progress and move forward with the development. And once the land, again, starts to develop, I would recommend bringing more staff on the Public Works side to maintain the new park, the new right-of-way
Big old
at
swap.
that point.
There may be some,
If that is an area, yes.
Depends how we do the trial.
Yeah,
Right.
it depends on the agreement. So I think at this point, I think 2 would be great to add. In the future, I do recommend adding more staff to the Public Works Department.
Okay, and I would say that we need to hear that loudly, that if you feel that as we're going in and we're creating more park space and more work for your division, that we need to have a plan and to be proactive to hire and not try to be reactionary to people leaving us. So my request to you would be, if you feel you need more staff, is that you let us know now so that we can budget for it and get people on board and we can get ahead of the curve.
you've indicated the turnover is pretty high just by the nature of the job and the nature of what goes on. Is that one of the things, do we do exit interviews with everybody who leaves? And
We do visit with staff when they leave, and most of the time we do ask kind of why they're leaving, like our current, one of our staff members who did, he was fairly honest, and it was to another city. We wished him the best, and, we can't look back or bad upon somebody trying to better themselves by any means, but where the city is at right now, that's,
I was just wondering if anybody's quoting or saying workload is too much, and because that would be, to my opinion, an indication that maybe we needed to have more personnel.
yes. Our workload is a pretty heavy load. Our staff, again, does a great job in doing in this workload. Recently, our staff has come together, in all kind of phases, but when people do take time off, vacation, that kind of hurts us. So definitely a bigger staff would help out with the newly developed areas. But we're also looking at.
Richard, ideally, how many additional workers would be good for you, Richard?
I would say with the 2 here, an additional 4, with looking into the future.
4 in addition to the 2 for a total of 6?
Yes, sir.
But you don't mean now, you mean as Litchfield Litchfield Square develops, et cetera?
I think as Litchfield Square develops in the future, the plan was on requesting new staff, but in the state where we're at, an additional 2 is what we're requesting now. We're trying to be conservative and not overstaff ourselves right now, trying to kind of move as the city grows. So, but Councilmember Claire, you do have a good point. If you'd like to create that culture and continue that culture here for the Public Works Department and that growth, when the city does develop, all that pride will then move into the new center and
I want that, Richard, and that's why I'm saying I want us to be proactive. And we are creating a lot more space for you to work on and a lot more to do. And if we need the staff, I want to plan for it now and position ourselves to bring on the best staff that we can to be able to get the work done and get ourselves prepared for it. So that's all I'm saying. So if you feel you're good with 2, I'm okay with it. But if you feel that we need more, we need more. And let's budget for it while we have a surplus.
Yeah, Councilman Clare, we're gonna have contingencies in this budget so that to the extent that we need additional staff in Public Works during the year, Richard is free to come to us and tell us he needs more staff, and we'll have budget authority to deal with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that.
And if you look at your fertilizer budget, given what you said to Councilman Brainerd Watson, you might want to change that 7,000 to something else.
Yes, sir.
You can take that back and look at it and give us an update in the next in our next meeting.
I've been hearing a factor of 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing
That's
too.
how much fertilizer is going up.
Because it's coming from either China or Russia.
Yeah.
That's why it's the chicken stuff worth the thought of.
Yeah, we need to go talk with Clint and see about some of that chicken stuff.
Yeah, I just spoke with a rep, a couple of our reps, because I'm trying to anticipate seeing if the seed is going to be consistent with the double in cost, and they really can't give me an answer. They're just kind of on hold. They anticipate it being about the same, but again, fuel charges, freight delivery, again, post-COVID, everything's still happening as far as lead time, materials, and fuel charge. I agree, though. It needs to be reevaluated.
You have a difficult area to budget for.
Okay, anything else on Public Works? Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have building safety with Brian.
Mayor, Council, first, good evening. Let me introduce myself as Brian Bertucci, your newly appointed Chief Building Official and responsible in charge of a Building Safety Division. With our budget line items today, I'd like to start from the bottom up on these subjects here. Just makes it a little easier to read. Not much has changed since the prior year. I noticed the cell phone has gone down, so someone must have got us a family plan here on this one. Moving up, no changes. You can see travel and training pretty much stays the same. I budgeted some monies for transitioning into a new code cycle, so we need to get money for code books and digital access codes. And also a big reduction in our third-party plan review services, because I want to try to, as you can read at the bottom, we're going to do fewer contract plan inspectors and plan review. And I want to try to keep the stuff in-house. I think it provides a better service to our customers And so overall, the budget has come down about 25%. Any questions?
Building safety is when you go out and do building inspections on construction?
We do plan review on new projects coming to town, and we
Right.
also go out and do field inspections on them.
Okay. All right, any questions?
Did I understand you to say we were doing contract inspections?
From what I understand, we hired out a third-party company to go out to these larger projects and do inspections. So I want to cut that and keep it all under one roof.
Yeah.
You're reducing those almost by half, correct, Brian?
Yeah, from 18 to 10,000. And that 10,000 would probably just cover someone full-time if I already go out for a vacation for, say, a week or two. And then I'm kind of on the fence on how to gauge the workload for the new city center. I don't think it's going to take off quite that fast this next year, but I could be wrong. So maybe we could get a contingency in there if I did need some extra help.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Next up, we have code enforcement. Rainer, you on the call with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can. Go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Shown is the budget for code enforcement. For this year, the department asked for just over 75,000. And for the upcoming year, the department is asking to increase to 97,000. Most of that advance is employee cost related, but a notable increase is the 1,400 for trainings, and 500 of that is travel related. So just depending on where these trainings are located. Are there any questions?
Questions from council?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, question again. The last slide, the last department had a $12,000 reduction in life, health, and dental, not to stand on this one line item. Here we've got a $12,000 increase with the wages being basically flat. So somewhere we've got a factor that's not working in the departments on this specific line item. Those line items are typically going up right now.
Councilman Clare, that item, as it goes through these different budgets, is very dependent upon individual choices that are being made by people in the department. And when you get into these departments that have one or two persons, it's really not something that we can appropriately talk about because it's an HR issue. So you just have to accept that there's a reason for it that's related to the individual choices of individual employees.
Understood.
Thank you. Any other questions about the code enforcement budget?
One note on code enforcement budget, Mayor and Council, is that we do budget for this position to be full-time. Currently, Raina's at 30 hours weekly, but we do budget for full-time, so when the need arises, so it's there to go to full-time position, the work is there.
You say the work is there, or you think it will be there?
It is there, it can be a full-time position.
Okay, so she's going to full-time, or
When she's ready to, sir.
she's not ready? All right. Okay.
Thank you, Raina.
Thank you.
Moving on to planning services. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you, you have the fiscal year budget 2023 for the Planning Services Department. You notice planning is asking for $142,846, which is a 40% decrease over fiscal year 2022's budget. One thing you notice is a $1,500 rate increase for the contract planner. His rate is going up this year, so line item needs to go up. Planning is asking for $2,900 for training and travel for the new planning department. There is a reduction of $25,000 because the city center marketing, which was in the budget last year, is being handed over to JLL, so it's no longer needed in the planning budget. And I welcome any questions.
Questions from council? Looks like not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Best way to get no questions is to come with a significant decrease in the budget.
Right.
Next up is Keith with engineering.
Nobody wants to mess with that.
Mayor, council,
The budget you have before you is engineering services. It's combined with special projects, Woody is doing with the city center. Overall, the department's increase is 57%, about 161,000. Majority of that is two line items, one being the wages for a special project coordinator, and then on the next page, you'll see that the groundwater assessments were moved from Public Works over to engineering. So that's a majority of that $161,000. Some other notable increases or decreases, Clear Creek and Associates was a consultant to monitor the plume, the PGA North Superfund site from down south. That has fallen under engineering department, so I attend the meetings and represent the city during that, which is many meetings a week. Then $3,100 for dues and training, travel, and operating supplies. That include field inspections for Anderson Construction Services, who does our part-time inspecting. Welcome any questions or feedback.
Questions from council?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, next up is the magistrate court budget. I will be doing this one. Again, this budget increased 77%. The main reason for that, again, is that this year we spent down the court enhancement fund. We paid for a lot of court expenses from the court enhancement fund. We've now spent that down where it needs to be, so the money has to come back to general fund. Outside of that, one interesting change you would see is that the prosecutor's budget is up from $5,750 to $15,000, almost a large increase. And that is for two main reasons. One, that our police department is doing more. I'll say that. And also that our code enforcement person is doing good, and a lot of issues come along with that. Any questions on the court budget?
Questions at all?
I just had a comment for you, back to Ron's questions about employee benefits, not matching, and the fact that we're tying specific benefits to specific employees. In our world, we just use a percentage for benefits to spread it out evenly across, so you don't get into those
It would be a better way to budget. I was thinking about that today earlier.
Suggest that.
No, for
Maybe put it all in HR.
No, you're fine. You mean like, for example, a flat 33% for benefits, 33% of pay, sir?
Well, you see what is, you figure out what it is, and then just use that percentage across. And then when you have one person department, it won't be standing out as an issue.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we did it was you don't want to because you can't wind up in a situation where a manager wants to fire somebody because they have expensive benefits.
Sure.
And if it shows up directly on their income statement, then there can be that incentive that, oh, wait a second, somebody's a lot more expensive than I realized. So I think it's just healthy to spread it out. And then that would solve Ron. Ron wouldn't ask you those questions anymore.
Right. It's a good idea to do that.
We
got two or three.
Oh, I'm done asking questions.
That's retired.
If we did it that way, would you still have the benefits per department or one line item under HR?
No,
I
just
think it's good
by
to have
employee.
Per department.
Yeah. Put it that way.
You probably have to have a chart that shows the total was still across the board and how the calculations made.
What's that?
You probably have to have a chart in here somewhere that show what the total is across the board.
The total of all the insurance costs?
Yeah.
Well, we could do that.
Well, we have no idea the way this is set up, what we're spending for this.
For insurance?
Yeah, for insurance, for any of the benefits. I mean, they're all spread out, so.
Right.
And they're 50-60%. In some categories, you'll see a time switch.
More.
In the private world, a little of it.
That would be heavy.
So if you get them spread out like that, it might bring it down to something that looks a little more in the realm of reason, at least closer.
Yeah.
It might bring it down to the 40% across the board or something.
Okay.
We could certainly do a chart to show the insurance and look at it doing the flat procedures, cancel our stuff.
It would make sense to do that.
Okay. Other questions on court budget? Okay. Moving on to public safety budget. As you'll see again, overall public safety is down 6%. Some of this already covered. There is no large one-time police expenses again because of all the equipment in this current year. Fire services are actually going up $46,000. Police services are down $195,000 again because of the one-time expenses. We are asking for $40,000 and 4 new cameras. We already have 32 cameras around the city. We would like to add 4 more for a total of 36.
Where are those cameras? Where are the new ones gonna go?
2 of them would be at,
Litchfield Greens.
there's already one at Litchfield Greens. The road that connects Denny Boulevard to Litchfield, I'm sorry, I don't know the name off the top of my head. Right there across from Panda Express. Because the reason why, there used to be one there, because originally Litchfield Greens didn't want it. And then they decided that they did. So I had that one moved from there to Litchfield Greens. So, and of course, one location actually takes 2 cameras, because you have to have one for incoming and one for outgoing.
Will that allow us to capture the hilltop and see anything that's going on up there?
Anybody that came in that way.
You see people going in, but you're not gonna see activity on the hilltop.
No.
That's a private drive. Did they put access out to Litchfield Road where they put cameras on it?
Now, I would consider a public street just because cars come through there. Maybe it is a private drive. I just look at it as cars come through there to come to the Sun Hill campus and on the hilltop as well. We have them on Denny Boulevard already, but we don't have any on that street.
Where would the other 2 go? Didn't you ask for 4?
I did. To be honest, I'll have to think of what those, I don't remember. I know really a total of 4. It's been a while. Because we had this discussion with Avondale PD as first camera locations. I'll be glad to let you guys know what the other 2 are.
What would be the other 2 on Missouri? Would it not have a subdivision up there?
Oh, so they're already there.
We have those
I see it every
covered.
day.
Are they being left alone? Are we having any problems with vandalism?
Oh, man, nobody's touching them at all.
Yay.
Knock on wood. And again, I'll let you know where those 2 locations are. One change here is $31,000 increase in moving fuel to Public Works. And just that's because currently we're using City of Avondale cars, and now we'll be using our own fuel, so that is a change there. Any questions on public safety budget?
What's the, how do we know what the fire increase is?
Are you asking me how it breaks down, sir?
How do we know? Are we being told? Are we negotiating?
They let us know,
Are
sir.
you guessing?
They let us know.
Please let us know.
They gave us a.
It's a pretty good guess, 753, 705. We didn't put the pennies in, but.
Well, it said 7%, so I didn't. Yeah. So is it based upon just increase in costs or increase in calls or what?
It's not increasing costs, it's not a change in the percentage allocation between Goodyear and Litchfield. So it doesn't have anything to do with calls, but it's just increasing costs in operating that station.
That is a preliminary estimate. They don't give us the final until after we adopt our budget, but I've looked year over year and it's very close, so I don't anticipate much of a change to the final.
So 7% is our number and the city Goodyear hasn't given us anything yet.
Oh, no, Goodyear gave us that preliminary estimate, but they just disclose. I think they wait until their budget is adopted before they give us the final.
And we have this issue, same thing last year. They give us a preliminary number, so that's what we work off of, and it's generally pretty close. Other questions on public safety?
We've got less than 600,000 for police, only to 2 million now for prison.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
If the guys will spend it.
Well, I think, I think the perspective is that was a good investment. That was a very positive change, even though it was more expensive.
Yeah, I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna turn it over to Tricia and get into the recreation budget. And on Rick, as we go through, we're gonna show revenues first, then expenditures.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Community and Rec Services has several different budgets. We'll start with the Rec Services Fund. Within that, as you guys know, we have recreation services in here, which essentially covers facility operations, as well as the preschool budget, the aquatics budget, and the youth sports budget. And we do have our preschool director, our aquatics coordinator, and our youth sports coordinator on Zoom tonight. So they will be presenting those sub-budgets and filling you in on those and answering any questions. I'll start, with rec services in general. Grab my glasses here. Rec services revenues, we're expecting a 5.73% overall revenue reduction in rec services. This is primarily due to reallocating some revenues that had been coming through rec services. They'll be redirected to aquatics and sports. It is specifically the GL for our annual program activity fees. We are going to reallocate 75% of those revenues to youth sports programs and 25% to aquatics. We feel that that better outlines exactly which departments are bringing in those revenues. So you'll see those changes in those other budgets as well.
Excuse me, is this rec services, is this just
is
the
really
rec building? Is that
rec, primarily rec operations. It does the tennis courts, park reservations, the staff, the cashiers, the front end staff. Yeah.
But not sports or pool or
Not, yeah, those are broken out separately.
Not pool, so like pool has its own people at the front desk or what? I don't.
No, the front office staff assists with all departments, but if you're speaking in terms of wages, their wages are within our rec services.
This budget?
Yes, correct. So you'll see those cashiers, a portion of my wages, and a portion of Pat's wages as Pat oversees the office staff. He's the direct supervisor for them.
Okay.
And you'll see that in the expenditures for recreation services. So for fiscal year 2023, we're looking at expenditures of $271,033, with revenues generated $61,900. So that particular grouping brings in a recovery of 22.84%.
When you have $29,000 of electricity, what is that? Just the electrical lighting and air conditioning for the rec building itself?
That's correct, yes.
Has nothing to do with the pool or the lights?
Well, yes, that is for overall facility, yes. But all of those utilities are covered under rec services.
So the
aquatics
pool
doesn't have a separate utility.
So the $29,000 that covers the pool also?
Correct, yes, sorry.
All right.
You didn't have any increase there. I think they're expecting electricity to go up. Should we be adding an increase in there?
We have, yes, certainly we can.
I just remember
we estimated that based on what we have been spending for this year, yeah.
Just Tom had mentioned would be a number that nice to know what the actuals are this year.
Well, if we drop the actuals in, we'll know.
Yeah.
But we can see it.
Any specific questions regarding these rec services line items?
It looks like no.
Okay. Next is our preschool revenue and expenses, and I'd like to introduce Shay White. She's on the call on Zoom, and she's our preschool director, so she'll answer any questions related to this budget.
Shay, are you here with us?
No longer on the call? Okay, well, I'll pick it up for you. In terms of revenues for fiscal year 23, we're budgeting $134,400. That is higher than this past year. We are coming through COVID a little bit, and the preschoolers are back in action, so we anticipate a little bit higher amount of kids in the program. Expenses, we've got a total of $123,395 that we're budgeting for. Some slight increases. We've got a license renewal of $2,000 that comes up every other year, so we've got a little bit of an expense in preschool operations, a little bit of a jump there that happens every other year. But overall, our cost recovery, including all of this for preschool, is 109%. So our preschool director and staff do a really great job of keeping the program full, as full as they can, and is taking care of their expenses and keeping those costs to a minimum.
As we tell them, our preschool is basically an enterprise fund. It's very rare to see a general fund department that actually makes money, and they make almost 10% over expenses.
Of the kids that are in preschool, do we know how many of them are from, actually live in the city?
We can get that information for you. We do track that.
Yeah, it'd be curious.
There's a different rate that we charge for residents versus non-residents.
How much different?
I don't have the current pricing in front of me, but I can get that info to you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions about preschool? All right.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Sammy.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name's Samantha Tejas. I'm the new aquatics coordinator for the city. So this is looking at my budget. So for the 2022 fiscal year, our revenue was $110,000. We are increasing to $114,000. This is based off of the revenue from last year, our actuals that we're gonna have for this year technically, and then a couple price increases, as you guys can see. And then for expenses, go on to the next slide. 2022 budget was $200,013. This year there is about a $2,000 decrease to $211,000. So our revenues are going to be $114,000, expenses $211 for cost recovery of 54%. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions from the council?
Mayor and Council, I would say that Sammy's doing a great job. He has been doing the pool for not quite a year now, doing a great job with it. And roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago, the pool was at roughly 30% ROI, and now it's at 54%. She's doing a great job. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
Good job, Sammy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Pat, are you on the call with us?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Pat McCoy. I'm the sports coordinator with the city. We're just going to go over a few of the numbers starting with our revenue. So our initial budget request for the upcoming season, we're expecting to make $167,000 compared to the current budget of $127,806. That's about 31% increase from fiscal year 22. That's due to the higher participation numbers. This winter and spring, we've had some of the highest numbers we've had in that register in all of our sports. So we are expecting 2023 to get back to the numbers we had prior to COVID. So, and then as far as expenses, we are planning to, our current budget, we requested $230,000 and $230,430. And in 2023, we're requesting that to go up about 9.3% to $251,874. The increase in that is also, majority of that would be the expectation of the higher participation numbers will also increase the need for facility costs and all that. So with the total of that, we're expecting to get a cost recovery of 66%. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
And Pat, you're now doing better than pre-COVID numbers on sports participation, correct?
That's correct. The winter and spring were our best years since even 2015. So we're expecting to go back to our numbers before COVID.
Okay, questions from council? All right, moving on.
We'll move on to special events, I believe it is. Just briefly overall for rec services, we've got an overall cost recovery to 54% amongst all those departments we just discussed. For special events revenues, we're looking at an increase of 2.56% projected, $320,700. There's not any real major changes in terms of anticipated revenues. We will be back to full production for our Arts in the Park concerts. And Christmas in the Park, in 2020, we decided to switch to a 2-day event to give us the opportunity to have some of the artists and craft vendors be out there because we couldn't offer any children's programming that year. We did that again this year and added in the children's programming and determined that was a lot of work on our staff, and we have minimal amount of volunteers still. So we are looking to go back to a 1-day program as it had been run for many years. We think that's a better option overall. We are planning to do, we have that last line item in revenues is for movie events. We are looking to do some movies in the park to add those in. So we're hoping for 3 or 4 of those. So that is revenue that we'd be looking for from sponsorships to offset some of the expenses for that. If you turn to the next page for expenditures, for fiscal year 2023, we're budgeting for $351,119, which is just over 1.5% over fiscal year 2022's budget. It is a cost recovery of 91%. We're budgeting for a recovery of 91% of our expenditures for fiscal year 23, and that does include wages, and that does include Public Works, any overtime that they work on our events as well. So we are factoring that into how we're trying to make up the costs of putting on these programs. Other than that, I don't believe we have any major changes in our special events programming. Certainly, if you have questions regarding them, I'm happy to answer.
Questions from council? Okay, thank you.
One last budget from Community Rec Services is the Community Services budget. For revenues, the main thing that we are doing is incorporating a memorial bench program that has not been fully established yet. It's in the works, but we anticipate that we'll be generating about $10,000 in revenue from sponsorships from those that are looking to sponsor a memorial bench within the city to honor a loved one. That will offset some of the costs that are associated with that, and we're working with Public Works and the RPG commissioners to come up with that program, so we'll keep you updated on that. Other revenues through community services are some advertising revenues that are generated through the city line. In terms of expenses, our major expenses are appropriating to nonprofits. We recommend $20,000, which is what we had for fiscal year 2022. Of course, that's to council's discretion if they'd like to increase or decrease that amount. Community programs, we are keeping that the same. That money is used towards the holiday home decorating contest around town, to advertising the community garage sale and for some of our expenses related to putting on the Neighborhood Watch program. Channel 11, as you know, council voted to disband Channel 11 at the last city council meeting, so we'll be moving forward with that. City Line is the last main line item on that, and we will continue this year with working towards publishing that quarterly again this year, so we'll have costs related to that, approximately $11,500. So overall, the main additional expenditure is $10,000 that we're incorporating the new Memorial Bench program.
Questions from council?
Mayor, I have a question. Tricia, are those added benches? Because we have some existing benches around the lake, correct?
We do have existing benches around the lake. That will be for the cost of, I know that some will need to be replaced, and Richard can speak to that if needed, but that would be the cost of replacing benches, adding benches where appropriate, yes.
That's awesome.
But we don't anticipate really making money off of that program. It's more a service to the community, and we expect that what we charge people will essentially offset the cost of purchasing any plaques, purchasing any benches, the cost of the labor involved with installing and upkeeping that would come from Public Works, most likely.
And then I just have another quick question, because I've had a number of people ask me about this. We don't have just one plaque per bench. In some cases, we have more than one. There can be more than one plaque on a bench, correct?
I'm not aware of any shared plaques on benches. I don't think we currently have any, and I don't think that's something that we would recommend to people. Unless
just
there
checking.
was if there were community members that were interested in that, we can certainly throw that out as an option for shared benches, but
sure, like if it's a family member, another family member, but you could still, charge them to add that if it was in the same family. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, we hadn't gotten that detailed yet, so we'll keep you updated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next two slides they're just a repeat, since we've gone through all of the departments now, just to recap our total revenues and expenses. I don't have anything further on it, but unless there's any more questions, I think next week I will have updated numbers on the things we discussed. I will add in another column for year-to-date, year March, and then projected through June.
Can you also, I'd like to know the number of FTEs when we budgeted last year versus the number of FTEs we have now.
Sure.
And we've actually HR generated that document, sir. We did the numbers since 2015. It's not broken down per year since 2015.
You say you have them?
We have had that prepared, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Bring it with us with you then next time.
We'll provide it to you guys.
All right, perfect. Any other questions about the budget from anybody on the council?
Just a few wrap-ups. Again, 26% increase for external revenues, largely due to sales tax. Looking at a 2.5% increase on expenses. That number did include 7% salary, and that number will change down to 10, and again, staff will certainly appreciate that. And coming up meetings, again, we have the next work session next week to go over CIPs. We'll be looking to adopt 10 on May 18th, and we'll have the public hearing for adoption of budgets on June 15th. And I would also like to say thank you, staff, everyone that was here on Zoom, everyone that was here with us tonight. It's a different way of doing it, and I think you guys did a great job. And I would ask you, if you have something on the agenda on the regular meeting tonight, please stay. Other than that, you're welcome to stay if you like. If you don't have anything, you go be with your families. Thank you.
Comment or? Comment?
Sure.
Will our May 18th tentative budget adoption be part of the regular council meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Just two
So
comments.
7 o'clock.
Councilman Silsey.
One, just a comment to staff in general. I liked doing it this way. I know it's a pain for you guys, but it was good for us, and I thought you guys did great. So, good job, Matthew, and good job, staff, on that. And Matthew, just one other thought on the wages issue. If you've got departments where you're having more turnover, then I would pay particular attention to those and just make sure you're competitive. Because if the problem in those departments is pay, then now would be the time to make those adjustments. So I guess, at least in my perspective, if you're out of whack somewhere and you need to go more than 8% somewhere, I'm open to that. We gotta be competitive. Sure. We don't want turnover, so I'm sure we don't need that everywhere, but where you're having turnover, I would pay special attention to that. Yeah, don't be afraid to come back and say, hey, we're under the market and we gotta change this.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn the special session on budgets?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Anybody need a few minutes before we start? Yes, we need a minute. Our clerk says we need a moment. So we will start the regular meeting in about 5 minutes.
Actually, I had a friend who will, for the sake of
How you coming in there?
we're gonna get this going.
Found in the
She was.
The regular meeting of the city council is called to order. We've already had our pledge of allegiance, so we'll go to mayor and council reports. We had Council Romack, are you on our Zoom call?
I am, yes.
You have a council report?
No, I don't, not this month. Nope.
Okay, good. Councilman Donahue?
Oh, just a quick one. We actually hosted a cocktail party for neighbors and some friends to tell them about the Historical Society project and to answer some questions about City Center. And Litchfield Square. And I guess I was very surprised at how many people really have no idea kind of some things that are going on. So I know we aren't marketing much yet, but even up on the hill. So we were happy to send out that info, and hopefully they'll send out that info and we'll have the launch. That's all.
All right, thank you for your report. Councilman Clare?
Nothing to report, sir.
Councilman Brainerd Watson?
I don't think I have anything to report. There was one event we were to, and I can't remember which one it was. It almost came to me. But nothing really to report.
Okay, Councilman Ostosi?
Nothing.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Nothing.
Wow. I just have
I know what it was.
Oh.
Sorry. I was going to say that the yard sale, the community yard sale event appeared to be a tremendous success. We had people coming by our house. We participated in it. And they were from all over. I mean, not just Litchfield, but people drove in from Sun City.
Yeah,
you know.
that's good.
Yeah, so it's a good thing for us to do.
All right. I just have a quick a note on Litchfield Square. We have, interestingly enough, we had not through JLL, we have one developer from Scottsdale who is coming back for a second meeting to discuss developing the entire project. And I got a call from another developer today who wants to come in and meet with us. Again, he wants to develop the entire project. So there's quite a lot of interest, at least, that's being generated even before we get this marketing campaign out and about. So we'll keep you posted as that goes forward. With that, we'll move on to the city manager's report on current events.
Mayor and Council, a few quick things. Report, of course, is in your packet. As you know, our truck restrictions will begin on May 1st. I'm sure you're aware of all the news that has been going along with that. City crews will be placing electric billboards at both ends of Calmac. You will see those out next week to let the truckers know that these restrictions are coming. Of course, we're coordinating with Avondale PD on that for enforcement. We have reached out to Southwest Valley Chamber to host our Meet the Candidates Forum, and we're tentatively looking at July 13th for that date, assuming the building is available. And we'll get back to you on that. That's all I have report-wise at this time, sir.
July 13th?
Yes, sir.
And this, just so council knows, this Meet the Candidates night is something that is typically done, but only if there's contested races. I had gotten several inquiries from people this year saying that they would like to see some sort of a forum, even if it's not a contested race. So they have the ability to ask questions of people looking for council. So that's why the city manager put that together. Okay, is there a report from the story? Oh, yes.
Mayor, I do have a question just about what you're mentioning. And I don't know if in the future, I think it would be very helpful to all of us on council if when there's an upcoming election, we get sent information on the dates and the whole spiel. So there was a little bit of a mix up in somebody that I was advising, and I just think that would be helpful. So just an FYI.
Sure. Happy to ask the city clerk to do that. She was sitting here, but so we'll be relayed to her to make sure that she puts that in her book for next year.
Presume we'll get some kind of survey to find out if we're available on July 13th or not. Or what's that?
Yes, sir, we will. That date is still tentative at this point.
Okay. Is there a report from the Historic Society, Mr. Vice Mayor? Okay. Moving right along. Brings us to the response to last meeting's call to community. There were no requests to speak, so there's no response. It brings us to this meeting's call to community, and I think I have one request. Newspapers from earlier. Actually, this is a request to speak on an agenda item. So we will hold these till the agenda item itself. So, Mr. City Clerk, there's no other request, excuse me, to speak through call the community?
Not that I'm aware of, but Terry's saying.
Just some streets, Mayor.
Okay. All right, and then we'll go on to presentations. First item, our first presentation is to the employee of the quarter. The employee that's been voted by the other employees as the employee of the quarter for this quarter is Youth Sports Assistant Jack, I love these names, Jack De La Monte. Close? Huh?
You got it.
Are you here with?
Yep.
Did I come close?
No, that was spot on.
Oh, well, that was purely luck.
Hey, nice job. It gets butchered all the time. That was impressive.
Thank you for your service to the city. As I say every quarter when we recognize the employee of the quarter, this is one of the more important things that we do. The employee of the quarter is an individual that is chosen by the other employees, not by the managers, but by the other employees as the employee that's had the biggest impact on the city and its residents for the quarter. So we appreciate your efforts and congratulate your good work. And I know that we have an award for you, but it doesn't tell me on my cheat sheet here what it is. Is it a day off or something? So what's the award? Where's?
8 hours of vacation.
8 hours.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
It is a day off. 8 hours of vacation.
Woo! Sweet.
Congratulations.
All right.
You've done such a good job. You get to take a day off. It's perfect.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next item is a proclamation for Arbor Day. That proclamation is in your packets, and it's available online. It recognizes that Litchfield Park looks at the planting of trees and the incorporation of trees into our community as being very important. Litchfield is consistently voted as a Tree USA city because we have so many trees, and we take our stewardship of those trees very importantly. So we recognize Arbor Day, and we hope that all citizens will recognize Arbor Day on April 29th, 2022. Next item is a proclamation about Building Safety Month. We just had a budget presentation on building safety, and building safety is something that we take very seriously. So the proclamation, again, is in your packet. It recognizes the month of May as Building Safety Month. So you want to keep in mind that we're here to keep our structures safe and keep our buildings safe so that we can enjoy them and not be put in danger. Last item is a proclamation concerning Municipal Clerks Week. So we want to recognize our municipal clerk, who's here with us, Terry, and as well as other municipal clerks. The workings of the cities throughout the nation would not happen if we didn't have our clerks doing their jobs to keep our councils on a straight and narrow and lawful path. So thank you for all your hard work, Ms. City Clerk. We recognize Municipal Clerks Week, which is May 1st through May 7th. With that, we'll go to our report section. The first report is from the Goodyear Fire Department. My sheet says Chief Wayne, and there's Chief Wayne. Good to see you, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tim Wayne, Goodyear Fire Department, here to report out on March's numbers. I'd like to just a real quick point that Brian Bertucci, your building official, is sorely missed in the city of Goodyear. You got a good one. I'll start off with the Fire Prevention and Development Services report. For the month of March, we saw 1 plan review, 1 construction permit, and 0 inspections. We had 21 occupancy inspections and then 3 special events. Total call numbers for the month are at 61. That is a 14% decrease from last month. We were on an upward trend for a while, so our annual numbers are projected to be slightly higher than than they were last year. For the overall call volume, we saw 54 medical calls in nature. Of those, didn't find anything of note or importance to pass along. One natural gas leak that we were able to mitigate at the Wigwam, and then one service call, 4 good intent calls, and lastly, 1 false alarm. That concludes my report. I'll stand by for any questions.
Any questions from the council? I don't see any questions, Chief. Please pass along our appreciation to all of your firefighters. They do a great job protecting our community and providing fire and emergency services. So thank them on our behalf.
You got it. We're proud to serve.
Okay, that'll take us to the Avondale Police Department report. We have Chief Espinoza here with us. Yes, I see him there right next to Chief Wayne.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. Good being here. This month, or actually the month of March, our staff responded to 217 calls for service. Of those 217 calls for service, 114 of those calls were officer generated. That is a 52% of proactive activity. In addition to that, we had a total of 16 flock activations, which is pretty high. However, 2 vehicles accounted for 12 of those activations. And it turns out that all the activations, or the 2 vehicles, had plates that were given to them that were previously reported as stolen. So it was a mistake by MVD.
Amazing.
Yes, we're learning that that's a big issue. This system has proven that MVD has some work to do. The other thing we're working on is traffic issues at the roundabout and also at Villanueva and Old Litchfield. You will be seeing our semi-undercover vehicles working those 2 locations. And at this point, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council? Councilman Bernard Watson.
Chief, are you going to be going after bicyclists as well?
We will be at those 2 locations primarily, but yeah, if we see any violations, whether it's a golf cart, a vehicle, or a bicycle, we'll address those concerns.
But that's gotten dangerous, very dangerous.
Absolutely, yes.
Donahue, you have a question?
Yeah, Chief, did you say Villanueva and Old Litchfield? You mean by the lake there?
Yes, we got some reports of vehicles speeding on Old Litchfield Road, just north of Villanueva.
Gotcha.
And actually, you will see that the speed trailer has been deployed there at that location.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's interesting with the flock cameras that all they found were 2 stolen license plates or misreported license plates, but that's actually a great service to our citizens, because I'd hate to be driving in some other state and have this issue pop up and have to explain it to an officer in another state somewhere. So helping out our own citizens, I mean, it's not the benefits we expected to get out of this, but there's another benefit to it.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor, if I can make a comment regarding that issue. Historically, when we do encounter a vehicle in possession of stolen plates, we take it very serious. We call for additional backup, and at times we bring the people out of the vehicle at gunpoint. However, because of the amount of mistakes that we have encountered through the flock system, we have changed our approach, especially here in Litchfield Park. About 90% of the stolen plates have been a mistake by MVD or whatnot.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a lot of risk.
Okay, well, Chief, please let your guys know that we appreciate the service they give to our community. Without a doubt, our citizens are very, very happy to have them here and to have your cars visible, and presence in the community is appreciated. So please pass that along to the officers.
Very happy. Very happy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, it takes us now to our staff reports. Finance, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the finance report through the end of March, which is 75% through the fiscal year. Our total revenues are at 10.3, those budget. Total revenues through March are just under 9.7, or 93%. total general fund expenses are at just under 6.7 or 65%. Our construction sales tax is nearly 1.7 million. Obviously, we are way over budget at 401%. We did receive our one-time ARPA funds, half of it anyway, is just over 1 million. And we have received nearly 80,000 from Maricopa County for the flood control project. We so far have spent just over $1 million in capital and nearly 1.4 for Litchfield Square, which leaves an ending fund balance at the end of March of 18.9 million. The details for rec services and special events are on the next couple pages. I won't go through that unless there's any questions. So moving on to our special revenue funds, our HERF fund. So far, we've received nearly 350,000 or 82% of budget estimates. We've spent just over 106. However, city engineer has informed me he will be spending about 500,000 of that by the end of June. So at the end of March, the HERF had an ending fund balance of nearly 1.4 million. Moving on to Litchfield Square, we have spent just under, or what I should say, what is posted is nearly 5.8. There are some outstanding invoices. So the $15 million bond proceeds, along with the general fund contribution of 1.3, leaves that fund with an ending balance of 10.6 million. The streetlight improvement districts, there is a delay in revenue posting, so we are technically upside down 30,000. However, the revenues are still coming in; they just haven't posted yet. In our court enhancement fund, we've received just over 3,000 in revenue. We've spent nearly 71,000, which leaves an ending balance of 106. And then our sales tax,
What have we set as a minimum for that fund balance?
50,000.
50, so we have another 56 to spend, huh?
Yeah, so for next year, I was recommending we put 71,000 back into the general fund and spend roughly, what is a note? It's less than 20,000.
So the fund balance, where is your projected fund balance at the end of next year? Is it getting close to this 50,000?
Let me pull out my budget application. I do have it in. I'm estimating the fund balance at the end of June this year will be 84,000. The revenues next year will be about 4,000, and then I'm recommending 16,400 in expenses, so that will leave 71,800 at the end of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the sales tax report. Through the end of March, we collected, or for the month of March, I should say, we collected 806,000, which is a 27% increase over March of 21. I didn't see any unusual activity in there. In construction sales tax, we received 82,000. Last March, we had a big reduction, so that negative 4,900 that you see last year was actually a refund we had to post, so that's not accurate to compare year over year on construction sales tax this month. But the total for March is 888,000, which is 40% over last year. Year over year, we are up 18%, excluding construction sales tax, and then our construction sales tax is up 34%. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
See the local economy humming.
It is, which means that it's gonna slow down.
It's screaming, not your humming, so we're.
I think we've had enough budget talk for tonight, so we're gonna let you alone.
You're probably tired.
Yeah, so now we'll go to an update on Litchfield Square. Mr. Scouten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just a few highlights on the things that have happened since the last update. Right now, most of the work that's going on the site has to do with the underground dry utilities such as power, gas, and telecommunications for the entire 26-acre site, as well as in Litchfield Road. We continue to have slow service from APS in terms of delivery of equipment that we need, and also doing some of the switchovers from the old equipment in Litchfield Road to the new equipment due to some relocations that we had to do. The door is opening a little bit, but it's still pretty slow with APS. I recently prepared an addressing map for Litchfield Square so that we could start issuing addresses for water meters, which will be the first thing. Liberty Utilities will require that. And then ultimately for our restroom building, and finally for the buildings themselves. Aiken Gardner continues to do an investigation of that truck scale structure that's on the west side of City Hall. That will need to be removed in order for us to install the extension of Loma Avenue. They're being very careful about it, make sure that we understand that that structure is not attached to City Hall in any way, so that we can make a clean removal of that structure. Still working with the Wigwam folks to schedule the relocation and undergrounding of a portion of the airline canal in the vicinity of Scout Lodge so that we can clear an area there for a future parking garage. Prepared and finalized and put out on the street a request for qualifications for a design build firm for the parking garages. So the idea is to get this firm under contract so that we can begin some of the preliminary design of at least the first garage and get that kind of teed up and ready to go for when the time that we need to start that final design and construction. Also working on a request for qualifications for to select a website builder to prepare a website for Litchfield Square that would start off being showing the evolution and development of the site, but ultimately providing a platform for all of the tenants, businesses, restaurants, and so on, who locate in Litchfield Square and provide a lot of opportunities for them in terms of bringing in customers and special sales and what have you, special events. It's also another way for us to advertise our special events within the city. Let's see, I submitted a building permit application for the main restroom building and working with our building official to get that underway. One of the big that I had this last couple of weeks was we finally abandoned some telecommunications cables, some old telephone cables and fiber optic cables that have been bugging us for probably about a year now. We couldn't, they're out there in the middle of the parcel between the church and the downtown, and we couldn't get anybody to claim them as their own. We think they were an old communication system for the Wigwam, but we weren't sure. So we went out there one day and finally cut them and didn't get any phone calls, and so far so good. So we got that out. I negotiated an agreement, line extension agreement with Southwest Gas that postpones the payment of our $42,000 fee until 10 years out. And with the refunds that we'll probably get from the gas that's used by restaurants in Litchfield Square, that we will probably end up not paying any fee to Southwest Gas. And then finally, working with the planning department on some revisions to the parking codes or parking ratios within our city code to bring those more into line with other cities and what the current trends are in terms of the number of parking spaces required for the kind of uses that we'll have in Litchfield Square. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Great questions. Councilmember Sosi.
Woody, just curious, with the construction on Litchfield Road and the circle, when did we originally think that would be finished, and how are we doing compared to that? What's our current expectation?
Yeah, we originally were hoping that would be done in around September of this year, but it looks like it's going to be December, if not January.
Wow.
Yeah, APS has cost us about 4 months on this project.
Councilman Bringer Watson.
Woody, you mentioned getting a website up for Litchfield Square. It might be worthwhile to think of a way of including a site where people could ask questions and get responses back. The one that Tom just asked about completion date is one that I get asked a lot. And I've been telling him October, so I need to go back to whoever I told October. But, there's questions that come up about, about it that might be nice to have answered on that forum.
Yes, that's a great idea, and we'll make sure we build that into the functionality. One of the things that ultimately we'll have would be a live chat feature, but I think that'll be a while before that gets up and running. But in the meantime, they can certainly send in questions, and then the website will be monitored from time to time and give them responses.
Any other questions from the council? Councilman Donahue.
So Woody, how is the negotiation with the Wigwam going?
I'd say okay. They haven't said, no, don't touch our canal. So I think they're on board in terms of relocating the canal. And they suggested that the work be done in November, December timeframe. So at some point when we finalize the plans to the point where I'm happy with them, then I'm going to, because I've been providing them with progress plans, during the design process, I'll send them a set of plans and say, this is it, in a week or so, if you're not ready to move ahead with this project, I need to know, otherwise we're moving ahead.
And then what about the sidewalk or the situation on the Village Parkway?
Every once in a while I send out an email and get no response.
Because doesn't that have to be figured out before we start construction?
We can build probably everything but the sidewalk itself without encroaching onto their property. But yes, you're right. At some point, we need to get that finalized.
Thank you.
Have we retained a property appraisal firm yet to appraise that property?
Mr. Mayor, my understanding that has been done. Perhaps the city attorney can address that better than I can.
The city manager indicated that there has been, somebody's been retained, so that's good. Any other questions from council? One quick question, Woody. You said you're putting in street numbers or, lot numbers, so water meters can be assigned. Are you still going to have the flexibility that as we go forward, we may end up with a developer that wants to build something slightly different than what has been laid out on your lots, so that we'll move these water meters around or move the, excuse me, we'll move the street numbers around enough to make it work, to make that work?
Yes, Mayor, that's very possible. As you probably know, addressing is based on a grid. So if the building locations move or even the water meters move, we can assign them new addresses based on the grid, and it's not a problem at all.
All right, good. Any other questions for council? All right, seeing that, we'll go on to the next agenda item. Thank you for your report. Next item is our consent agenda. Items 9A through I. Is there any member of the council who would like to take anything off of the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, I'm sorry?
from the staff, we'd ask if you could pull item I, so we can have further discussion on that. There was just a change that was provided to us today on that, and I just want to make sure it's clear.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt consent agenda items 9A through H?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Stolze. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, items 9A through H are adopted. 9I will be held as or heard as a regular business item. Mr. City Attorney, you want to tell us what has changed?
Yes, Mayor. There's just some small grammatical changes, some capitalizations on one of the paragraphs, and then the attorney from the other side for some reason added a new sentence paragraph, just referencing again ARS 38511, conflict of interest, which in my opinion was already in the IGA, didn't need to be restated in the amendments to the IGA, but I just wanted to call that out and just because it was a slight difference from what was included in the packet.
All right, any questions from council on the changes that were made to the IGA, the amendment to the IGA? If not, is there a motion to approve the amendment as amended between the city attorney and the other attorney for the intergovernmental agreement with Flood Control District for Vista Verde Drainage Improvement Project?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by the Vice Mayor. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Then we'll go on to our normal business agenda, which is item 10A, which is adoption of ordinance 22-256, amending our zoning code for temporary signs. Ms. City Clerk, do you have a report on that?
Just a brief one.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This item was introduced to you last month, updating our code for statute, increasing the time to place signs and decreasing the time to remove signs for private property and right of way. And nothing has changed in the ordinance.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Motion to adopt.
Second. All right. The moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 22-256. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the ordinance 22-256, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Going on to then item 10B is a zoning code text amendment. We have a couple of requests to speak on item 10B. So I will call them in the order that I've got them on these sheets to speak before the council considers this item. But I want to just make I want to make sure that everybody understands why item 10B is in front of us and what is being proposed that we're going to do. There is an ordinance on our books that is not clear on its application to the parking of RVs in side yards in Litchfield Park. There is an interpretation of the language in the ordinance that is the interpretation from our city attorney and our code and our city zoning, head of our zoning, I don't know, what's your title for this?
Zoning administrator. Sorry.
Zoning administrator. So they have an opinion on what the language in this ordinance means. Our Board of Adjustments has a different opinion on what the language means. It's different. It's just totally different. So we have a mass of confusion on exactly what is it that is being regulated on the parking of RVs in Litchfield Park. So the item that we're going to hear tonight is an item to refer this issue to our Planning and Zoning Commission to start a process to determine what is it that we should be doing, if anything, on regulating RVs in parking in side yards. So we're not going to be considering tonight the substantive issue of whether we want to regulate RVs in side yards. We're going to take up the issue of, do we want to refer this to P&Z so they can get public input through public hearings, and then they will bring it to us and give us a recommendation, which we'll then we'll talk about the substance of it. So with that, we're going to call on the citizens that would like to speak, and the first one I have is Tom Gall. Tom, are you here with us?
I am here. I hope everyone can hear me. Good evening, Mayor Schoaf and members of the council. I'm speaking in opposition to the business agenda item 10 subsection B, the zoning code text amendment. The agenda item paragraph 7 suggests that the council recommend a rewrite of the city code to incorporate 3 possible outcomes. The way the agenda item is written, I believe it attempts to back the council into a corner by only giving them the option to choose to agree with the zoning administrator's flawed interpretation of the existing code, an interpretation that was recently rejected unanimously by the Board of Adjustment, or to ban storage outright, potentially conflicting with state statutes. The agenda item does not suggest a 4th option of leaving the existing code intact and voting to reject this motion based on the following facts. This code, as written, has served the citizens and the city of Litchfield Park for a very long time, going on 30 years based on my recollection. When properly enforced, it has successfully limited the proliferation of travel trailers and motorhomes being stored on lots within the city for all of that time. The wording of the current statute is clear, unambiguous, and patently simple to enforce, requiring only a visual inspection, a few tape measurements, and a simple calculation. Additionally, this existing wording was recently unanimously supported by the Board of Adjustment in its official capacity, and in its long existence has not conflicted with Arizona revised statutes, as is feared that Section 3 of this proposed amendment might. Lastly, it perpetuates long-standing neighborhood aesthetic and community standards. The existing statutes do not prohibit RV storage. They just set specific conditions which have served the city and its residents well up until now, and will not require the city to undertake the lengthy and expensive text amendment process with all of the required notifications, meetings, discussions, and legal scrutiny. The only reason that we're here today looking to change the wording is because code enforcement has deliberately failed to enforce the code as written for the past 16 months, and now they are looking for justification for that omission, and not because there's anything wrong, ambiguous, or unenforceable with the existing code. I also find it incredibly ironic that the city manager, who is by title the chief zoning administrator and as such is the architect and chief proponent of this move to liberalize our zoning code, does not live in the park and hence will be unimpacted by the consequences of this proposed amendment. I thank you for your time. I appreciate your time, and I'm now finished. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Gall. Next request to speak is from Tony Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Tony Smith. I'm a resident here of Litchfield Park for the past 18 years. This evening, I would like to speak with regard to agenda item 10B, or the move to initiate a text amendment to the zoning code section 31.04. I am in strong opposition to any amendments to zoning code section 31.04. I strongly support the enforcement of the code as it is currently written and was supported by the Board of Adjustment's decision earlier this month on April 7. In my opinion, allowing trailers, boats, or RVs that can be seen above a 6-foot fence line would make Litchfield Park less appealing aesthetically. I do not want the amazing views that we have here in Litchfield Park to be obstructed by trailers, RVs, or boats. Currently, I have an amazing view of the sunrise and sunsets and would hate for that to be replaced by an obnoxious RV logo. Allowing recreational vehicles to be stored on properties within Litchfield Park would not make it a better place. Although yes, it is an inconvenience and an expense to store an RV in a storage yard, it is an inconvenience and cost that I personally have bared for the last 15 years as an owner of an RV. However, I am glad to do this because I do not want to contribute to the degradation of Litchfield Park. By my casual estimation, it is a very small percentage of residents who currently store an RV, boat, or trailer that can be seen above fence lines. The rest of the majority of residents do not store RVs on their properties because they too appreciate the current zoning code and its enforcement. I can imagine that the current zoning code is difficult to enforce at times, but I know that I personally support and appreciate this enforcement as do the majority of the residents of Litchfield Park. Current code has been in place and enforced for a long time now and has contributed to the charm and appeal of Litchfield Park. Please do not amend zoning code section 31.04. Please leave it as it is. Mayor Schoaf, city council members, thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next request to speak is from Garrett. Looks like Garrett Preval. Do you hear
Good
Garrett?
evening. Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I'd like to speak on item 10B and would like you to amend it. I personally do own an RV. I'm new to the community. I recently purchased the home after my return from South Korea in December and have done extensive remodels on the home in excess of $90,000. The reason that we purchased the home here in Litchfield Park, among other reasons, was that we grew up here in Arizona, and Litchfield Park has always been and always will be a great place to live. In addition to that, it didn't have an HOA. As you know, many HOAs don't allow trailers. And upon the purchase of the home, shortly before, I did a little bit of research, and the way I read the law, it was allowing my family and I to store a trailer within the community as long as it had the required setback over the fence line. I recently received 2 notices from the code enforcement. She's a very nice lady. I understand you don't shoot the messenger. She's just doing her job. But I moved the trailer to be in compliance, or what the staff of the city of Litchfield understood to be within compliance. And then I was disheartened to find out that the members of, not the council, but the appointees had recently changed their understanding and are now requiring it from the ground up. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that we should be allowed that 6 foot. The wall that I share with Indian School Road and the public right of way is a brick wall, and it's not a wall, it's not slats or lattice or wrought iron such as those that are backing up to the golf course, but it is a brick wall. So I think I should be allowed the 6 foot and then the 2 foot setback for anything over the wall. My home is one of the few homes in the community that is capable of storing an RV with great ease. I do own a little bit of a large RV, but we purposely bought that home again because it was capable of storing it. I understand that storing RV can be costly in the community. I do have the opportunity to store the RV at the base for an exceptional reduced rate, but they are of course full, as is all the other RVs that I've called. I've called 3 and they're full up. So as of this point, I have nowhere to store an RV. And I'm at a little bit of a loss for words because things have changed in a matter of a couple of weeks since buying this home. So I would like you to trust the zoning administrator and the code enforcement and go with their understanding of the 2 foot setback and continue to utilize that enforcement for the community. I did a little bit of research, and within our community, the property values have continued to rise over the last 12 years. I don't see a couple of RVs peppered throughout the community to be a bit of a problem, especially with the new Litchfield Center going in. It's not going to be an issue. Our property values will rise, and we will continue to exceed within Litchfield Park. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your statement. All right, so the item that's before us is, do we have Jason Sangster to make a presentation?
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Can
Yep,
you hear me
there he
okay
is.
with my headset?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a fancy new headset. Just want to make sure you can hear me. So, yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, city staff, members of the public that have spoken on this issue tonight. Yes, this item was really initiated in regards to an aggrieved property owner complaint. The aggrieved property owner was concerned that their neighbor was storing a recreational vehicle in violation of the zoning ordinance. And that property owner spoke tonight, Mr. Gall. And that ended up resulting in a code compliance issue that's been in continual kind of state of review over the last year, ultimately culminating in the zoning administrator's interpretation of the code as you have in your packet. At the Board of Adjustment hearing some of the board members that have been with the board for a significant period of time shared a different understanding of what the interpretation of that code was, and that it was quite a bit more onerous, as the last property owner said. The understanding is that the city of Litchfield Park in the year 2006, 2007 purposely wrote the code to be quite restrictive in an effort to keep RVs parked off-site. What we're here tonight is really, as you know, as you set the field very well, Mayor, is not to deliberate whether or not we're amending the code tonight, but rather you believe that the language in the code, it needs to be clear, as I've spoken with the city manager, Matthew Williams, who's also the zoning administrator, and he agrees that regardless of what the city's position really is on the storage of recreational vehicles, it's the language in and of itself that needs to be clear to the council, to code compliance, and to members of the public. And through the citizen review process that would ensue through the text amendment consideration is where we could have these conversations of whether or not we want to store these on lots. Do we want them visible? Do we want them screened? Do we want to preclude them from being there? So this tonight is your opportunity to direct staff to initiate that process, not to actually initiate the actual change of the code. I would like to clarify 2 items on Mr. Gall's presentation. He is correct. You can opt to move to not initiate a text amendment, which is basically an option 4, and that's always been your option, is to not follow the recommendation. It just wasn't specifically listed in your report. And also, I believe there was a dissenting vote from the Board of Adjustment. So I believe it was a 3-to-1 vote, not a unanimous vote. But it was a majority vote to basically repeal the interpretation and uphold the appeal that Mr. Gall presented. So that, anyways, just wanted to clear the air there, and that is, do you believe that the code is unclear? I believe you've already stated that, and do you instruct staff to initiate a review of that language? And I'd be happy to answer questions in regards to that. You have a lot of information in your report, so I know you've seen a lot of stuff.
Are there questions or comments from council? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, is one of the comments, I saw the city manager squirm in his seat. He does live in the park at this point, so he is not living outside Litchfield Park. So I thought I'd stand up for him for that before I shoot him down.
Could you give me another bottle of water?
I own an RV,
Thanks.
and I wouldn't dare store it next to my house. And I've got plenty of room to do that on the side of my house, and I got a gate to put it in. But under very plain interpretations, statutory interpretation rules, the code's pretty clear the way it's written, and I disagree with you, Joe, and I disagree with you, Matthew, and I agree 100% with the Board of Adjustments as to what they found. You measure this thing from the ground. You don't measure it from the top of the 3-foot, 4-foot, 5-foot, or 6-foot fence, or whatever the heck is out there. Now, if we do nothing, where is that going to leave us? We'll have the Board of Adjustments decision, which may or may not be followed or binding by our magistrate if he decides he thinks it's not clear. We have a code provision that even our own staff and me and our citizens don't agree on how to interpret it. So it seems like maybe the insertion of a word or two, and it might make it more clear. So I don't think we have any option except to shove this to P&Z. But then the next question in my mind is, do we shove it to them with directions as to what we think it should say, or just keep our mouth shut and say, here, P&Z, deal with it, and we'll look at it again when it comes back to us?
When you read the language, it is possible to interpret the language in different ways, and we've actually seen that very clearly in this situation. We've got 2 residents that read it one way and a 3rd resident that reads it a different way. We've got a city attorney and a city manager that reads it one way, and we have a vice mayor that reads it another way. So it's pretty clear that there's confusion in the way the thing is written. It's a very important subject. I think it's one that deserves council's full attention, and we want to make sure that we do something that, that is the correct policy decision. And then that, whatever that policy decision is, it needs to be written very clearly so that there's not a matter of confusion over how you interpret this ordinance. So I think we have to send it to P&Z and have them do a public hearing, give us a recommendation, which is our process, bring it back, and then we need to debate it. And we may have disagreement on the council of what we want to see the policy be, but I think it would be short-sighted to set the policy before we've had the opportunity for the citizens to express their desires through the P&Z process. So, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Another alternative I was just thinking about, is it possible, Terry, is it too late to send this to the citizens and ask them what they want in the next election?
Yeah, I'm
Or is that just going to raise this hornet's nest?
I think it probably goes beyond what we want to do in this.
Mayor, if I may, I don't believe it. Mr. Faith, if I may, I don't believe the item for the text amendment would be at a level now where it would be required for referendum. It hasn't been acted upon by the council, but we could do it through a text amendment. Then it could lead to that ultimately, but I don't think that's where we're at right now. But I don't, unless Joe, you disagree, I believe we would just simply be at the citizen review stage.
Right, but there's a difference between a referendum and then a ballot initiative that's referred to the ballot by the
council.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You can do that if you want to.
I think we probably missed the dates for that, haven't
I think we
we?
missed the dates.
I think we.
Primary, but you could do it for.
Just barely.
That's, what's the general, like September, November?
November.
November, oh, that's way too far away. We need to move forward with this. Okay. Bad idea.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clare.
So I agree with you on this. I was on the Board of Adjustment and we had a lot of discussion. This went on for quite some time. And there is ambiguity in the language. In the beginning of it states that it has to be covered and dense, and then it gets into language that is not clear on the height issues that are there. I know people have plain language, and we've gone through all this with the initial Board of Discussion or Board of Adjustment. I just think we need to clean up the language, whatever way we decide to go with this. But right now, the way it's written, it tells you can, and then becomes very restrictive behind it to the point that there's only very few lots that would even have the accessibility to do this. So I just think we just need to clean up the language and make the language fit whatever we decide to do as a council or whatever we're directed from P&Z. It's too ambiguous right now in the way it's written.
Council Member Clare and Mr. Faith and the Mayor, may I ask you for some direction, at least from the planning consultant perspective, since I'd probably be preparing various versions of drafts. I think it's at the will of the council to the extent we may go through an extensive citizen review process that's beyond like the most bare minimum that you may see, where if you would like us to how we notice to the public, how we get the word out for public input, I think, we can expand that. That's at the will of the council, how much or how far we take that so that they feel they've been fully involved. Whether that's through noticing through a local newspaper or through, obviously we would post on the website. There's the standard procedure, but we could always expand it if you wish to have an open house or two. There's nothing that would preclude us from having that additional citizen involvement if that's the will of the council.
Councilmember Watson, you had your hand up?
Yeah, is there a possibility of including also some illustrations or pictures of what would be approved or what would be?
We have pictures in our packet.
Yeah, I mean, with what's coming up, what we're revising, include them with that so that people can look at it.
It would be a good idea.
Okay.
Mayor?
No, Sophie, one second, Councilman Donahue.
It seems to me like it's pretty clear that we have language that's not clear. Because people within this room disagree on its meaning, educated people. So it would seem to me we should be referring it to P and Z, but it also seems to me that we shouldn't necessarily give them direction other than to clear it up.
Yeah, I think,
Clean it up and then bring us what they cleaned up, and then we can argue about. whether or not we like
the
it.
direction should be to go through a process and take public comments, have public hearings, and then make a recommendation of what should we have as a policy? And then then we need to adopt the policy and then write the language to fit that policy.
But we don't need to give them any direction on what the policy itself should be.
I don't think we should at this point. I think it needs to go then and go through a process and come back to us. Councilman Donahue.
So I have a simple question. How much abuse have we had? Like, I drive all over Litchfield, and I mean, like, have we really had that many people that have done that we're going to go through? I mean, I certainly don't think we need a public hearing. We're going to have a slugfest, but how much abuse have we had of this?
26 in the city, sir. 26 RVs in the city and yards.
Okay, so the city managers just informed me that there's 26 RVs inside the city and side yards, which quite frankly surprised me, Councilman Donahue, because I didn't really think that you could park an RV of any size on a side yard. I mean, it never occurred to me that somebody would do that. So I was surprised that there's 26 of them. I think it's something that we really need to make a decision on. And I don't think our current code, I'm bothered by a code that appears to be written to say it's okay to park the RV on a side yard, but then has a mathematical formula about height and feet that makes it probably mathematically impossible to park an RV on the side yard. So the whole structure of the wording of it, I think, is not good, and so it leads to confusion so I think it needs to go back to P&Z, and there needs to be a full hearing on it, and we need to see what, and then we need to make a policy decision.
But let me ask this question, Matthew. Of those 26, how many have abused it? What's written right now? Just asking. I don't know. One? Four?
Matthew thinks they're all fine.
All
So
26 are fine or not?
Because of the way that he interprets the code. Probably none of them are permissible if you interpret the code in the manner in which the Board of Adjustments.
If I may, Mayor, the Board of Adjustments action is final. And so it's legally been reversed already, the zoning interpretation. So right now we would have somewhere in the range of up to 26 RVs in violation of the code at this time. So that's why Matthew's expressed that it's imperative that we review the language now, because we may need to ensue on a compliance process if necessary. So that's why it's not lingering longer. I don't mean to speak too long. I was just saying that legally speaking, it's been reversed.
Correct. I'm trying just to express to Councilman Donahue that based on interpretation from the Board of Adjustments, all 26 of these units are most likely violating our ordinances. So
Right, but the
they're
only
all-
people, all I'm saying is the only people coming to those hearings are going to be those 26 people. Isn't there a way to simply put this so that everybody's happy? I don't know. I mean, we have a Board of Adjustments that we bring in and we support, and now we say to them that what they thought was wrong. I just don't know if we need to go through the whole fix the text maybe, but anyway, just my opinion.
We have to decide what is the policy answer. Okay, we have different camps in terms of what policy is in place in that ordinance, and I don't think that it's clear what the council's direction is on what should the ordinance say. What is the policy? Councilman Brainerd Watson.
What are the ramifications for being in violation of the code right now? So say someone's been noted that they're in violation for 3 or 4 or 5 months.
I don't know.
Are there any ramifications for the homeowner?
I'm sure there are.
Jason, would you mind speaking to that question, sir?
Sure. I'm not directly involved with code compliance. I believe it's technically under building safety, but what I will speak on is that usually we work within, it's usually a citizen-centric process in which we do go out in good faith and we talk to the homeowner about a violation and advise them that they're in violation of the zoning ordinance, this is the section, and that they have X amount of time to correct the situation. If they continue to violate the zoning ordinance, it can continue to escalate and become an issue where they can be taken to court. Otherwise, usually what would happen is they would just take the RV and go park it somewhere like in an RV parking lot, or, you know, like the places where you can store stuff. So I think that's the concern, is that we would have a significant amount of compliance letters going out.
Can we pause compliance letters going out temporarily until we clean up our language and know exactly how we're going to interpret this?
I would hope that we can, but I ask the city attorney.
You do whatever you want to do.
Mayor and council, I think the city attorney and I could work, there's a program you can work with in regards to if there's a compliance solution that needs to be put in place over a reasonable period of time.
And then also, is there an option on the table for, because of the ambiguity, grandfathering some of these people in and then cleaning up our language and at that point in time starting really following it with any further with number 27?
Yeah, I'm not sure that would be a good option, although, there are always options on the table. I'm just not sure that's a particularly good one.
So that would be an enforcement nightmare, because then you have to keep track of what properties, and then if that property was sold, is the new owner entitled to continue that use and different things like that.
But what we could do is once we establish a policy, if the policy is that you're not going to put RVs on side yards, that we could have an effective date that was, for those 26 basically, that would give them enough time to go find a home for it.
And just so you know, from staff's perspective, we don't take a position one way or the other whether they should be or shouldn't be allowed, or whether that's a policy decision for council, because ultimately you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to have
Somebody's going to be mad on this deal.
You're going to have people who are upset because they can't store them, or people who are upset because they are being stored. It's just a matter of, we need some clarification, and it can be a simple 1 or 2 word fix to what's currently there, just to provide clarification with regard to the measurements, or a complete rewrite. However it comes out, we just want to make sure that what's being enforced is clear, and people who, for example, the gentleman who spoke tonight, who recently purchased, moves in and knows what he can and can't do, because that is it can make a big decision on whether or not somebody buys a house here, or,
just outside the community.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. We're talking about RVs, but this section deals with not just RVs, boats, trucks, buses, utility trailers. Other non-building or landscaping equipment shall only be stored, and then you get down to these rules we're talking about. So are we going to try and amend the rules to allow RVs, and we're going to differentiate between an RV and a bus that's converted into an RV? We're going to allow diesel trucks to park in side yards.
I can tell you right now, we have people parking trailers on side yards that violate that violate the way that the Board of Adjustments reads that ordinance, and we're not. So what this is a policy that's going to impact a variety of things, and it will be more things than just somebody's RV.
That's right.
It will be trailers. It will potentially be boats. It could be a variety of things. But I think we need to step up and make a decision on what do we want in the community, and then we'll deal with it.
Because we're only looking at that one little excerpt from that code section. The rest of the one that mentions this thing that we're looking at and relating to RVs also requires you to screen a diesel truck sitting in your side yard.
Right. No, and it you probably cannot meet the way that it's interpreted. You probably simply can't park any of those things in the side yard.
I don't want a diesel truck parked in the side yard.
I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying that.
But see, Tom and I are in a different situation. we live under HOAs, and we can't, nobody on that side of the road over there can do it anyway, because they're gonna get a nasty letter in a heartbeat.
So
We're
are you not,
talking
don't you
about
care
this
about
side.
this side of the road? Come on.
I do care about it, and I think that it shouldn't be allowed over here either.
Okay. Well.
And that's one of the reasons we want to clarify, because when you buy a house in an HOA, you're provided with those CCNRs, and you
Yeah.
know what you can and can't do. And then when you're over here, it's, you know, when you close on a house and there's no HOA, nobody provides you with a copy of the code or the zoning ordinances and
Right.
requirements and things. We just want to make sure whatever it
Needs to be clear.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Mayor and council, from what I've understood over the last 8 years, the historical context was that some of the code was written in place of the fact that the city doesn't have an HOA over the older portion of the park. And so, again, Joe, if you don't mind, maybe we can talk about what Councilwoman Brainerd Watson had mentioned about whether we could do, if there is a stay of enforcement while we figure out the solution for those that are not in compliance at the moment, based on the Board of Adjustment's decision, while we walk through the text amendment process as expeditiously as possible.
Motion to refer. Second.
The point of question for your motion is that with the understanding that we're gonna have a moratorium on enforcement until we get this through the process, or are we gonna start enforcing under the Board of Adjustment decision?
That might be a second motion, but I didn't include that. I figured, let our staff figure that out.
I don't think they have the,
Do we have the-
they don't have the discretion to figure it out.
Do we have the right to say that you will not enforce our laws?
President does, so. why not?
Joe, do we need that as a separate agenda item? I apologize for interrupting. I just want to make sure it's on the agenda.
We're not saying we're not gonna enforce it, we're just saying postpone it till we have clear language and clear direction.
And I think that's it. It's postponing the enforcement until we have an opportunity to have the public hearings and have the clarification.
And our city attorney tells us we can do that.
Yeah.
So we're protected. Okay.
Would you amend your motion to include that, or do we need to do a second?
It's up to you. If you're not, then, we can go forth and vote on the motion and then
Someone else?
re-agendize it for the next meeting. But the problem is it's a month from now, so.
Yeah.
Could we follow it up with a second motion?
I would second it if you changed it. I don't know if that helps you.
He's not worried about that.
Mr. Mayor,
I'll throw that in there also.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment
Okay,
real quick?
but just one second. Let's set the situation so everybody's on the same page. We have a motion and a second to refer the language under zoning code section 31.04.A.1 to P&Z for public hearings and a recommendation on the policy that should be followed concerning the parking of various vehicles, including RVs and trucks and whatever, on side yards. And that there will be a temporary moratorium enforcing the interpretation arrived at by the Board of Adjustments until we can go through this process and have a policy, a clear policy. So that's the motion that is on the floor. So now, Councilman Clare.
But not as to 31-04A limited to item 1. That'd be A and A1, that whole thing together.
It's 34.04.A or point A1.
8.1, yes.
Well, A2's in there too, so we want to talk about that too. but-
So all of A then?
Yeah.
It's all of A?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 31.04.A, and it's all of A, not just one.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the motion that's before the council. Now, Councilman Clare, did you have a comment?
That if I don't know if we're able, yes, sir, thank you. Are we able to parse this down that we are not opening this up to other vehicles outside of RV if we're staying enforcement in anything that we're doing on this? Because we don't want to get into situations where we have other vehicles now able to get through the process.
Yeah, the motion is going to be to have a moratorium on enforcement on, for the 26 RVs that are currently parked in the park, period. So not beyond those 26.
What about the
Thank you.
27th when they shut? Well,
Not a moratorium. We'll bring the hammer down on them, tell them it was the vice mayor's fault.
Do you need a second on that?
okay, I think we need to have the mayor do this by proclamation.
All right, the vice mayor's motion is to refer the language in 31.04.A to P and Z for a full set of public hearings and then a recommendation back to the council on what policies should be followed on the parking of all of the items that are in this zoning code section. And while we're doing this process, there will be a moratorium on enforcement of the Board of Adjustments interpretation as it applies to recreational vehicles only. Okay, so that's the motion that's before us. Now, Councilman Clare, did you have a further statement? You're shaking your head, but we can't hear you. You're muted. No, okay, so no more. Councilman Romack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going back a few years, there have been some very creative ways to raise the level of the fence or the gate or whatever so that you don't really see the RV from the street, although you might have a gate that's 10 feet tall or some other creative way of trying to hide a RV or a backhoe or whatever it might be that somebody's trying to park in their yard. So I think that that also needs to be included in this, that it literally can't be there, physically can't be there. It's not like it's okay that you can put it in your backyard and hide it.
The code says 6 foot max, unless it's dense vegetation and there is no height limit.
I think that's,
So that's,
I think that's wrong.
Yeah, all of this is what needs to be hashed out at P and Z. So are there any further comments from council?
I'd call the question.
Okay, so we have a motion before us that has been explained in detail as to what it is. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the motion, it carries. The issue will go to P and Z for full public hearings and with the request that they bring back to us the recommendation on what the city policies should be. We will agendize it and then have a full discussion here and decide upon that policy. And then once we have the policy, then we will work on the language to make sure that we can express it properly in the ordinance, so there's no question about it. So going on now to item number C.
Question?
Yes.
Was the vote unanimous?
Yes, unanimous vote. Item number C, 10C, is a presentation by our city manager on animal control IGA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second to approving the IGA with Maricopa County Animal Control for animal control services?
Second.
Any further discussion by council? All those in favor of approving the IGA with Maricopa County Animal Control, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion is adopted unanimously. Next, what?
That was easy.
That was easy.
Good
Next,
job, Matthew.
yeah, well presented, Matthew. Next item is an IGA for animal shelter with Maricopa County Animal Control and Care and Control. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the animal shelter IGA. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Next item is an amendment to the American Tower lease agreement for the cell tower on the hilltop. Is there a presentation by Daniel Office?
Yes. Mayor, Council, thank you.
In 2010, the City of Litchfield Park entered into a contract with American Tower for installation of a single monopole cellular phone tower and ground space for equipment at the Hilltop location north of town. At that time, American Tower paid the city a one-time payment of $16,000 and a monthly payment of $2,000. Since then, that monthly payment increases every year according to the Consumer Price Index. And currently for 2022, it is $2,416.55 a month. The original lease was for 5 years with automatic renewals every 5 years, expiring in 2040. Automatic renewals occurred in 2015 and 2020. The contract is not due for renewal. However, American Tower approached the city to renegotiate the contract for an additional 30 years, terminating in 2070. American Tower has offered the city a one-time payment of $20,000. In exchange for this, American Tower requests 5 amendments to the original 2010 agreement. The first is extend the lease to 2070 with 6 5-year renewable terms. Second is rent payments will continue with annual increases according to the CPI. Third is additional rent for placement of more than 2 subtenants on the approved tower structure or the installation of a new tower shall be $1,600 per month, or 50% of the amount charged by tenant to additional subtenant for placement of the antenna on the tower, whichever is the greater amount. Number 4, additional 1,000 square foot of space around the current area that's mutually agreed upon of both parties. Number 5, if a new tower or equipment is built in the 1,000 square feet, it requires city approval and will be at the sole expense of American Tower. This would also enact the additional monthly payment fees listed in number 3. Staff does recommend the American Tower lease agreement for amendment. And the financial impact is,
as you described.
yeah, monthly rent.
Questions from council?
Where's that tower located? I know I should be able to see
It's
it.
up at the very top of the hilltop. It's a palm tree.
Big palm tree.
Yeah, if you look carefully, you can see it, but it blends in pretty well.
I can't believe I missed it.
It's up there, yeah.
Question, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. As I analyze this, they're getting 30 years, we're getting $20,000, they're getting an extra 1,000 square feet of property. And the comments about revenue for anybody over 2 co-locating on the pole are a non-item because it's already in the agreement. We've already got that agreement. So that's not to even be really considered unless we want that.
What they're getting is the ability to build another pole.
That's why they want the 1,600 feet to 40. Then you
1,000 square feet.
They can get enough separation. That's only a 40 by 40. Because they're going from 600 feet to 1,600 feet. That's 40 by 40. They're going to put a second pole on 40 by 40, or they want a 20 by 80, or what do they want?
If they come in with an actual proposal to put a second pole up, then we're going to discuss, and we have the right to approve where they put it. So the extra 1,000 square feet may not be just expanding the current pad. It may be a different pad, that's.
I thought they requested it contiguous.
I thought they did too.
Yeah, I thought they wanted the ability to move it around a little bit.
Number 4 is 1,000 square feet of contiguous property.
Is it contiguous?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does it sit
So
with?
contiguous can be 10 by 160.
Yeah.
But they've got, my thought process, there's these guys with these towers, especially if they can get them on government land, it's a home run. They're not paying property taxes. It's get rid of a lot of problems trying to site these things. The 20 grand is probably low. We need to make sure that we keep some language that what they're doing inside, there's going to be screened by a 6-foot wall of some sort, and they've got a wall around it now. If they don't do anything to mess up the electrical and the conduit that's been installed to go from that cell tower to the band stage for electric to be run off of that feed that they put, that was part of the deal. They put a feed in so we could run off to the band stage.
An indication is that it's too small to do anything. We have to put more electrical service up there, either, in any event.
There's at least 2 3 or 4 inch conduits up there running from that cables that they brought in.
There's an electrical substation up there. I think Woody's gone now, but I think we've looked at it and it's not sufficient to really do anything on that bandstand. We're gonna have to bring more electricity in.
If we stay with LEDs and technology, we don't need a lot of light up there, but still, okay. But I wouldn't want to do anything to mess with what we've got up there, because we do have something that is used.
No, we don't wanna mess it up.
there. And then, if we're gonna do this, and give them this extra, why do we want to split the revenue only on the third and fourth co-locator? Why don't we split the revenue on the first and second co-locators on the pole up there? We love these.
I thought we already had that in our agreement.
Yeah, the
So
road
what-
contract.
Yeah, if they co-locate another repeater up there, we already have, don't we?
No, only the third one. The first two, we don't get anything.
Hmm.
The second, I think we should go back and tell them we want something out of, the ones that I've negotiated in the past, we've gotten, for the high schools and the grade schools, we've gotten money from everybody to co-locate from them.
Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
I've been working and negotiating with American Tower with another municipality. We're being told they have specific guidelines in their business model that they won't agree to do certain things.
That's okay, their competitor can come to us and put a pole up there. We don't have a problem with
Yeah,
that.
and you don't have to do the amendment, and you can leave it in place. I'm just letting you know.
My concern also is, we're trying to lease this to Sun Health, and we're trying to lease part of it out to the Historical Society, and maybe trying to lease part of it out to maybe, I don't know, the Farmers and Ranchers Association. And I don't want any of this co-location, whatever this thing may be, this 20 by 80 or whatever, to a factory, get involved with that up there. It's not worth 20 grand to put up with another pole and to have whatever potential issues may pop up.
Well, maybe it would be a good idea to table this until we get done with all the other leases we're working on.
Or have them come back to us with a much better deal, tell them to get outside their parameters.
We'll let them deal with, we'll let them deal with Sun Health.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and from the Historical Society's point of view, I would like to know where this is gonna be.
It doesn't impact it.
It doesn't at all.
You know what the band stage is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is
if
it west of that?
you're standing facing it, the stage, it's to the left and behind, across the little driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's up the hill. in the woods.
So it isn't anywhere, that's part of what, it doesn't impact the Historic Society.
No, unless
But
there's
it,
an
you know-
access
But there are other
issue.
entities interested in the bandstand too, so
What's that?
there are other entities that have indicated interest, I believe, in the bandstand. and-
No, not really. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I
you
think
say yes, who? I'm not aware of any entities that are interested in the bandstand.
I've heard that one of the men's groups has asked to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think which one it is. Has
Our
asked,
Rotary Club. We've
Rotary,
got
yeah,
75
Rotary,
grand.
yeah.
We'd like to do something with it up there, but during COVID, we shut it down. You guys started negotiating with Sun Health, so they backed off.
right, there's just a lot of decisions that are all gonna hinge on each other, and once we know what's going on up there, then I think it's an easier decision to make.
What we can do is just go back and tell them, say, look, the council rejected your proposal, you guys have to come back with something better and make them come back to the table. I don't want to negotiate against ourselves with what we've already
Right.
put out there and say, look, they were not happy with the initial lump sum payment, and they were not happy with the terms and conditions with regard to co-locations. So you guys need to provide us with a better proposal that we can take back to council.
All right, so you want to make a motion, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Motion to table,
Second.
send staff off to negotiate.
Okay. Is that sufficient, Mr. City Attorney?
Yeah, as long as we're clear that under the Robert's rules of table, it brings it back to.
Yeah, it would be better just to move to send it back to staff and say we're not happy with the
Yeah,
proposal.
okay, send it back to staff.
Not happy.
Not happy.
All right. Is there a second?
On your face.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion by council? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is adopted unanimously. Okay, council rules and procedures.
Oh, yeah, this is actually early compared to 15 years ago. We didn't get out till midnight.
Oh, yeah, got it till 9 o'clock.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Okay, This item is on there so that we can have a discussion and I don't know, I'm not sure whether we really need a motion to recognize this, but it's a discussion to make sure that everybody is on a consistent page with city council meetings. So city council meetings, the way that originally it was set in the code, and I don't know if we've changed the code on this or not, but the council meetings were set for twice a month, at least. The first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of each month were regular council meetings. And then we modified that so that we would have a regular council meeting on the third Wednesday, but council was to keep the first Wednesday open in their calendar because it was as a standby that if we needed 2 meetings in a month, because we had things that needed to be decided, that we would have that meeting date available without it being a big problem getting council together and getting a quorum. So it's the first thing is just to discuss is whether or not council is still. Does everybody on the council understand that normally the commitment is 2 meetings a month, but that we've modified that to 1 meeting whenever possible? Is that? Yes, I'm seeing shaking of heads. Yes, the council. Council Claire. What's that?
I'd say it's at least duly noted now.
Well, and it's important because sometimes the issue is whether or not when we need a special meeting, it's not really a special meeting. It's going back to simply meeting what was originally the commitment for what the council would normally meet. We've tried to accommodate everybody and do it in 1 meeting, which normally works well, with the exception of things that come up in Litchfield Square.
Right.
Those many times they're time sensitive, and they require us to get together more than once a month. Other than that, I think staff has done a good job of getting things to us, in these monthly meetings, and we get them done, and typically we only meet for 2 hours, and then we meet for 2 hours once a month, which is, I think it's healthy. I like it. So, but I just want to make sure that the council is all on the same page when it comes to being committed, if necessary, that the first Wednesday is also,
First and third.
Yeah, first and third is the commitment. So everybody understands, and all right. So I don't think, unless I'm wrong, I don't think we need a motion on this or any kind of resolution. It's just so we're all on the same page about what the understanding of what our rules and procedures were in that area.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
What would be the normal expectation for advance notice then, that we're going to have one on the first Wednesday?
Typically, at least a week would be normal. I mean, because what we would like to see happen in the normal course is that you always end up with a packet before your meeting, and the packet would come out on the Friday before a Wednesday meeting. So you would have to have notice, by, I don't know, Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, to have that much, to have enough lead time. There are times when that can't happen, just because something comes up that we don't, it's not physically possible to get all that done, but that would be the expectation normally. It's not something that's supposed to be popped on you, but on the other hand, it needs, whenever possible, I would ask everyone on the council to try to keep that first Wednesday open, so that if something does get popped on you, that it's not a matter of really being a negative impact on your life. I mean, particularly, with things with potentially having more than one developer interested in doing more than one space. I mean, it could very easily need special meetings just to find out how council wants to deal with it, because it's outside the norm of what we've been kind of planning on and directing, the direction we're going in. I could easily see needing special meetings where we talk about this, because I guess we'll see what these people have to say and what when we explore it further with them. But I can see that being an issue. But my commitment is that we'd give you as much notice as possible, and I've talked with the city clerk about packets and with the city manager about packets, and the expectation is those packets will come out on the Friday before any meeting.
Well, it has to be noticed how many days in advance?
Just 24 hours.
Oh, really, just 24?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's not, it's an comment, it's better practice if we have the packet, so, because the whole idea is we want enough time so the council can review the packet ahead of time and not, not be coming to the meeting and not prepared to act. So, okay, yes.
Could I ask to go back to mayor and council members' reports on current events for one very short thing? Give me 2
Well,
minutes.
okay, I'll give you an accommodation.
Okay. One of our staff members said that they're attending the Superfund site meetings. I can't remember who it was. Okay?
Yeah.
In our packet, every month for years, we would get something out of that Superfund site meeting so we could see what was going on. I noticed in the report that some of those well sites are getting there's more crap showing up in some of those readings and stuff, getting closer to the city. We have watched that at this council on a regular basis every month, but something's happened and that's all been lost. And I brought this up before and we're still not seeing it. When you go to those and you get those maps, they need to get to us in our packets. And we need to have something in here so we can talk
Yeah,
about.
but it needs to be on the agenda.
Yes.
You can add that. They do give us reports every time we have a meeting, and Twin Creek and Associates was providing that summary before.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I can start that back up.
Yeah, but they don't have to do it, as long as we just get the darn maps that are being created or something, or the test results, our own test results when we're testing our lake well, and that stuff, so we can see what's happening.
Yeah.
Because that's an extremely, extremely important thing to us and all of our citizens.
Absolutely. It's, I am taking a look at the readings. They do fluctuate. We don't have a lot of results here for lake wells. That's something we're working towards, get testing done.
Just get that back on the agenda and back in our packet so we can see what's going on.
Yes, sir. We'll add well report to staff level report, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a need for an executive session under 11B. So is there a motion to go into executive session under item 11B?
So, second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are going into executive session. And when we get out of executive session, we will not be taking any further action. So while you're welcome to stay around and see us come out of executive session, the only thing you're going to see is that we're going to adjourn. So there won't be any action, no action items after the executive session.
Doing real well now. It's gotten old enough and it's lack of water.
It's gotten around Beth's husband. What's David, right?
David.
Yeah, so maybe David's been hanging out by that
I
tree.
think so. I think he's cut off all the water.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved. Sorry.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you guys for a long night. Thanks for your dedication to our city.